You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, and welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host, Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we're going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So before we do that, just a little point of order. This episode was recorded in 2022. It's part of the backlog that we're trying to clear out right now as I try to catch up on all of our Star Trek releases. So anything that we say about ourselves, take in the context of its 3-year-old information. But I do think that we have a great discussion about Deep Space Nine, and that's just timeless. But I don't want to natter on, so let's go on to the podcast already in progress. Let's meet our cast for this week. So starting off, she is my co-host on all of these shows, these Star Trek episodes, because she and I used to have all kinds of Star Trek conversations. She has a love for the show equal to my own, and that is my friend Stephanie. How are you doing, Stephanie?
Hello, I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm living the dream over here. I can't say that with a straight face.
Very hectic dream. Oh,
I
no.
hurt my back recently. Yeah, I've got like a lumbar pillow behind me, and it's like I feel like I'm like twice my age.
Well. I mean, I've had sciatica issues since I was 16, so the only person who could relate to me was my great-grandmother when I first got it. So that was fun.
Yeah, this is really messed up because although I've had back pain, chronically for most of my life too, this is like laying down doesn't help. Like usually, you take your weight, your body's not supporting itself anymore. You're just laying on a flat surface. Like pain goes away. And this time it's like laying down does nothing. And in fact, I'll lay down, go to bed feeling fine. And I'll wake up with my leg throbbing, in huge pain. And I'm go to sleep flat on my back, wake up flat on my back. So I don't think I like twisted in the night or anything, but it's a problem right now.
Well, I hope that clears up for you.
Thank you. So
sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So anything exciting going on for you? Get past the pain issues.
I mean, I'm finally starting some gardening. I'm starting my 6th book and also working on publishing the first, finally.
Oh, cool.
There's no actual status on publishing. I've just actually started trying to get that going.
Okay.
So it's just that fun time because I want to go the traditional route instead of self-publishing. So it's just that fun setup for rejection after rejection, which, keep talking to my therapist about because I have to psych myself up for all this rejection that I know is incoming. But yeah. So hopefully I will soon be an actual published author. And I've got 5 books completed, a 6th one already started, and I'm finally doing some gardening. So that's been my life lately, is just trying to get a garden started and pretty much hanging out with Tim or writing.
Yeah, well, no, that's really cool though. Definitely keep us posted on the publishing and everything. And you got to psych yourself up for the rejection, but people become authors, they get published. Everybody's gonna have like a first book, that they get published. So
there's that Viking time traveling cowboy vampire, whatever. Oh,
I need to
my
find
God.
that and put it in the show notes because people keep hearing us talk about that, but it's like they probably don't think it's real, and it is. It is so real. And I don't know why we were chatting one night, but we were chatting one night and you shared the link to me, and I was like, oh my God, like
Yep.
this sounds like the trashiest novel ever written.
Yep. And I mean, I'm not going to shame the vampire part because vampires are part of my series, but it's not as ridiculous as that.
Yeah,
So,
the time traveling Viking cowboy part, I think, is the
yeah, that's what really just okay.
and you know how it reads. It sounds like it's a romance novel, so you know
Yep.
there's that too. So
Yep.
yeah.
And I mean, admittedly, that's how a lot of vampire books go. And I mean, mine isn't a romance book, but there is some romance, of course, in it. But yeah, I'll see if I can find that book again or the link again and send it to you because yeah, it's something else. I am half tempted to get it just because it's so bad.
Oh man. But yeah, it's good to have you back on the show, Stephanie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And next up, she is my co-host on Time Streams and Legendary Forces, but she's here to talk to us about Star Trek this time, and that is my friend Juliet. How are you doing, Juliet?
I am awesome.
Well, good. That's your most positive introduction, I think, in like the last 3 months.
Well, part of it is today was not a bad day. It was a very long week, but today was not a bad day. I'm hyper fixating on something that I don't think is terrible for my health at the moment. That would be the show Our Flag Means Death. And I had not intended to go back to Tennessee Ren Fair this weekend. I was planning to wait until the last weekend in May and go back when it's a little less crowded. But this weekend is Pirate Weekend, and I managed to thrift together and adjust with tea and coffee and scissors a gym costume for Sunday. So I'm kind of really excited to go running around Ren Fair as Jim.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I know this means nothing to you.
No, it means nothing to me, but it's good that you're having fun doing it.
It's great. I've never actually tea stained anything before, or coffee stained. So that was a lot of fun. And I turned a cotton bathrobe into a duster, which was really cool. I was complimented on my stitching because I was like, you broke out the sewing machine to stitch up the seams of the slit up the back. And I'm like, no, I stitched those tiny ass little things by hand. Thank you. So it's been fun. I'm making fair favors for anybody who recognizes me as a character. So I'm going to hand those out at fair. And it's, like I said, I'm hyper fixating. I was watching the show again. I just restarted on episode 1 while I was waiting for our podcast to start.
Well, I'm glad I gave you an excuse to do that.
It's so much fun.
All right, well, it's good to have you back on the show, Juliet.
It is good to be here.
And finally, we have a friend that I made from Chicago TARDIS, and she comes on to talk to us all the time about various different subjects, and that is my buddy Miranda. How are you doing, Miranda?
I'm doing okay.
Well, that's good. Anything new and exciting happening for you since the last time you were on?
Well, I'm finally living in my own place for the first time in my life. No family, no roommates, all by myself. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. Bought house plants. I have already killed one succulent, and I am working on keeping alive a very straggly looking spider plant. And it's it's an adventure.
Once you get those spider plants going, they're just going to keep going, and you end up with like 15 of them spawn from the same one. So, yeah. But if you manage to kill it, I've got plenty more I can send your way.
Great.
Yeah, well, congratulations on getting your own place. That's definitely a big move. I mean, I didn't get my own place until like I was in my 30s. So, it is what it is. But yeah, always exciting.
Indeed.
All right. Well, it is good to have you back on the show, Miranda.
Thank you. Good to be back.
All right. And so normally we'd have our 5-minute controversy here, but we've got a lot to talk about. And originally this was going to be 4 guests on the podcast. So I never do a 5-minute controversy when we have 4 guests on the podcast. So I didn't plan for one, so we don't have one. But yeah, we're going to pause for a moment for a promo from another fine podcast. And then we are going to come back and talk about Deep Space Nine.
Another sunny day in Gotham City. But wait, what's this? The dynamic duo has been captured by the evil alliance of the Joker, Penguin, Catwoman, the Riddler, and the Minstrel?
Holy mismatched melodies! What do we do?
Never fear, the Bat Chums are near. Drew, Mike, and Magic Batman are on their way to save the day by recapping and reviewing every episode of the 60s series.
Holy podcasting platforms! Where can we find them?
Right here on the ESO Network and YouTube. Don't worry, Bat Chum, the worst is yet to come.
And we're back. And like we talked about in the beginning of the show, we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Now, this is my favorite of the Treks. And I'm just kind of curious because obviously this one came out while Next Generation was going on. I'm just kind of curious if the 3 of you watched it at the time or if it's something that you came back to later. So let's start with you, Juliet.
I watched it when it aired. For a good portion of the time, and then I think I fell off of it not long after Worf came onto the show, just because I grew up watching Next Gen, and I felt like, no, you can't have him, don't you dare. But I got back into it, of course, once I was an adult and it was on Netflix, and I could binge the crap out of it, which made it so much better. But I did originally watch it as it aired.
Okay, Stephanie.
I thought we were talking about Babylon 5 today, not Deep Space Nine. Damn it. Actually, that kind of is my answer.
Always on your mind.
Despite the fact that I have always been I say Star Trek is in my blood. I also was a very hardcore Babylon 5 fangirl, even as a little girl. I've mentioned on some other podcasts that one of my Barbie storylines took place on Babylon 5. So when Deep Space Nine came out, little 10-year-old me, or however old I was, I definitely thought, this is ripping off Babylon 5. I don't care that it's Star Trek. They're ripping off my Babylon 5. And this was back in the pre-internet. Well, actually, no, I think the internet was already in my life. But it wasn't the impact that it is now, where you see this argument going on all the time. So yeah, this is the one Star Trek that I didn't actually watch as it was airing because I was being an elitist little snobby brat about it. But I did catch it not long after it stopped airing, like the first time it was going through syndication in full or something like that. I can actually still remember the first episode that I saw, which every time I see it again, it just, I don't know, it just kind of cracks me up. It was the episode with Jake and the vampire-like woman who was feeding off of his creativity. So maybe that's why I'm a writer who writes about vampires, because of that episode.
Oh God, I forgot Deep Space Nine had its own ghost romance plot.
But yeah, so I watched it early on, but it still wasn't one that I watched as it was airing because, yeah, snobby little brat girl.
All right, we got to circle back and talk about the DS9 Babylon 5 stuff. But first, Miranda, did you watch it at the time?
I did watch it at the time. My mom was a Star Trek fan who got me into, so it was always on. I didn't really get into it until maybe season 3, because I was still pretty little and there was a lot of political stuff that I found really boring when I was like, 7.
Mhm.
But no, I got into it pretty quick after that, and I watched it during the original and have watched it in reruns since many, many times. Got me through the pandemic, just binge watching DS9.
Yeah, don't feel too bad, because I think was a little bit older than you, and I didn't really get into it much until season 3 either. Like, and I was watching it. I was watching seasons 1 and 2, but I was just like, man, this show's just boring compared to Next Gen. And then we get to season 3.
Yeah,
and
that's what I thought too.
I was like, oh wow, like this is the show. Okay, like I'm ready. Yeah.
Yeah, they kicked some of the writers off to Voyager, and the show got a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way, have you all seen the What We Left Behind documentary that they did?
Oh yeah, I have the Blu-ray of that.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray too.
I keep meaning to watch it, but I have not.
Same. I really need to get on that.
Yeah, it's available for free streaming. Like, you don't have to, pay for it. So I definitely recommend it. It's really good. And they even do this like the part that frustrates me is that they get the main writers together and have them like do like a proposed like first episode of an 8th season where 20 years have passed, and like if they did and they go through like the whole plot, like we see the process of them breaking the story, and then they have like these little like storyboards that go with it, so you can actually watch like the episode develop. And now I'm like, I want that episode, and I want to see what happens next. It's like, you don't get that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, don't tempt us like that. That's like tantalizing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is.
But yeah, I find your response hilarious, Juliet, because for me, Worf coming on was like, yes, like another like really cool element added to their show, and like that made me even more excited, about Deep Space Nine.
Don't get me wrong, I'm the weird one who also kind of really loves the episode Move Along Home. Probably the only person in the world who loves that episode, but I have always remembered that stupid little rhyme, and every now and then I'll just start singing it to myself for no reason.
Yeah. Oh God, I don't remember I know like Almarine, count to 3. 4? Okay.
Almarine, then 3 more. Almarine, if you can see Almarine, you'll follow me.
Oh my God, yeah, poor Avery Brooks. He looks so like unhappy having to sing that thing and do like the skipping. Like, I felt so bad for him. But yeah. So and the thing is, Deep Space Nine, the reason why I asked that is because it created very strong divisions within Star Trek fandom as soon as it appeared. Like, and even me being someone where I didn't have internet access in those days, and just from talking with people, like not having any like strong connection with like an organized fandom, like got that, like, oh, like this isn't really Star Trek. They're boldly going nowhere. That can't be Star Trek. There's no ship. And so,
yeah, I never felt that way about it.
No,
yeah,
definitely not.
It was frustrating to me because there was a lot of it. I mean, like I say, like the first 2 seasons didn't really grab me, but there were always isolated episodes that I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. So yeah, I never had a problem with that aspect of it. But all right, but Stephanie, I do want to talk to you just really quick about Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine, because very famously, Joe Straczynski, who developed Babylon 5, went to Paramount before he went to Warner Brothers, and he said, hey, I've got this idea for a series, and he would even proposed it as it could be a Star Trek series, and this is the concept. And they said, no, nobody's gonna want that, like that doesn't sound interesting. And so then he went to Warner Brothers, and then lo and behold, a few years later, he finds out, oh, what is this? Paramount's developing their own space station show.
Yep. And I did not learn about that until like within the last 5 to 7 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
So that little tidbit did not influence 10-year-old me at all.
Yeah, well, the part I find funny though is that the shows aren't very similar in the beginning. Like the beginning of Deep Space Nine is not like Babylon 5 at all. But you can tell at what point around season 3 when they started looking at Babylon 5 and said, hey, these guys are killing it. we've got to like borrow some of these elements into our show. And suddenly the idea of like Cisco as the chosen one, like, yeah, he was always the emissary, but they didn't really hype that part in the first couple of seasons. Suddenly in season 3 on, it's like, oh yeah, being the emissary, being the chosen one, sort of messianic. It's like that starts becoming a lot stronger. We start getting into a war frame, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like a lot of the elements that you know, Babylon 5 was playing with suddenly become,
Oh yeah.
you know, part of Deep Space Nine. And so yeah, that's all I've always kind of chuckled about that it's like
there are tons of similarities between the two of them.
Mhm.
And then also my favorite character on both of them ended up not being in the last season too. So replaced by a I guess okay substitution, but
oh, okay, we're gonna talk about that too. Okay, because I'm pretty
Jadzia
sure I know
and
who you're
Ivanova.
talking about now.
Well, I just said Jadzia and
Okay.
Ivanova. Both of them. They're
Yeah.
my favorite characters on either show. And yeah, they both don't make it to the last season.
All right, but let's segue to that then, because that is one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is who is your favorite character on the show. So let's start with you on this one, Miranda. Who is your favorite?
Well, I guess my opinion is gonna be pretty unusual in that I actually love Ezri. I really do. She's kind of my little fave. I relate to her a lot, and honestly, you know, the thing was, it's like I came in like very prejudiced against her because, of course, like we all love Jadzia. You know, she's our badass batleth wielding glamazon queen. How can anyone replace her? You know, but like I really appreciate the fact that they made Ezri so different from Jadzia. They didn't try to do a replacement Jadzia, a carbon copy who would never measure up. You know, they made an entirely different personality. You know, I mean, I love that she's, you know, she has self-doubt. She's, you know, nervous. She not always self-assured, but like, I think, you know, it's great how they went for like doing a different kind of strong female character. Cause like, I think a lot of times when people think strong female character, they think like Jadzia. She has to be, you know, wielding weapons and always confident and knocking back a beer with the boys and like, you know, but also a character like Ezri, you know, where she comes from this family background that's not particularly loving or supportive. And like, she survived that to like, you know, achieve her dreams, get out of there and go into Starfleet and become a joint Trill, which like is only the most extraordinary people in her culture get to that. So like, I think that's a really great example of how you can have self-doubts, you can come from not a great background and rise above it. And that's just as strong as someone who is always confident and always self-assured. And I love that they, you know, they did that and they gave us that. And I relate to Ezri a lot, you know, as, you know, a teenage girl who had that same kind of feeling of, you know, I'm not like super self-confident, but like push through. And I just love her. So
But is Ezri really your favorite character?
I mean, I know she was only in one season, I know,
Right.
but like she was kind of, when she came on, it was like, oh, she's me, you know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
no, I mean, if that's your legit response, that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. I was just making sure that it wasn't just like responding to Stephanie's comment that Ezri is your favorite character.
oh yeah,
So,
like
okay.
I adore my precious small bean forever.
Okay. So here's the thing that frustrated me at the time, and rewatching with my daughter, I feel a little bit differently. But what frustrated me at the time is we had this arc going on, and it felt like we had to like take the time now to introduce a new character in the final season, and I felt like the arc didn't get as much play as it should because we were spending time getting to know Ezri and doing these Ezri centric episodes, and it was kind of like frustrating to me because even though they did like a 10 episode like you know like back half of the season were all interlinked, but still at the end it feels like wow, that still felt kind of rushed. It would have been nice if they started that a few episodes further back. So you know, I just felt like but at the same time I understand their issue. You know, they had somebody leave, and it's like, do you not replace them at all? You know, or do you try to replace them? And I mean, they probably picked the best decision that they could have with the idea of replacing Jadzia by bringing in another Dax. But you know, it's still, it was tough for them, I'm sure, to make that choice. But I did sort of struggle with having Ezri. It would have been better to have had her earlier on, but I mean, obviously you can't.
I mean,
control
obviously,
that. So yeah.
They had to work with an actor leaving. And I think, you know, honestly, like it was, I do understand that if people don't love Ezri all the time that they spent to develop her character probably, yeah, wouldn't be as interesting to people who are not as invested in her. But like for me personally, another thing I loved about having Esri is that because like having her there kind of gave closure and a continuation of Jadzia. It wasn't just like, oh, one day she died and she's gone, like it was with Tasha Yar Next Gen. It's like she's referred to every now and then, but it's like it's not really like the grieving process doesn't really happen, you know, in the same way. And I love that like through Esri, we got to really like kind of mourn Jadzia and like come to grips with like losing her like as an audience member and also as the cast characters do, you know. So for me, I appreciated it because of course, you know, Jadzia has been there the whole time. We love her, we miss her, and I think it was nice to have that link of Esri to kind of, you know, process that loss, you know, both in the story standpoint and as an audience for me.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And yeah, like everybody, since we're just going to do like a character as we go around, like if you want to comment on somebody else's character, feel free. So like Juliet, what do you think about Esri in that transition?
I was not a fan of Esri to begin with, and for the most part, it took me a couple of rewatches, I think, to better be okay with her. Does that make sense? I am that person who holds on to my characters, and you have to pry them out of my fingers. But her, especially like hearing you describe it that way, Miranda, it I can live with it. It was okay. She just felt, in the beginning, to me, she just felt kind of forced into the groove, and I feel like if we'd gotten more time with her, it might have been easier for me.
Yeah, Rachel absolutely hated Esri. It was just like,
why am I not surprised?
she just is like, oh God, why are we doing this? Like, she just had no time for her. But she also didn't like Deanna. Like, she has an issue with how like you know, counselors are sort of depicted on the show, and doesn't think that they're very good therapists. And you know, like, so she takes a lot of criticism with that aspect of it anyway. So yeah, it was kind of interesting watching it with her. I find myself defending Esri. And so it was good. It was good because it made me defend Esri a little bit. So yeah, Stephanie, I know you already said that she was inferior to Jadzia to you, but like, what do you think of Esri overall?
I mean, she wasn't Jadzia, and I agree with Miranda. That was a good thing that she wasn't. The biggest issue that I always had with the introduction of Esri was just the fact that Julian basically finally got to sleep with Dax. That part just always is just, it's just weird.
We're going to talk about Julian in a little bit.
So I just keep getting ahead of us here.
Yeah.
So I think in the long run, that's really what always holds me back with Esri when I detach myself from my love of Jadzia. Is just, I felt like her, for whatever reason, getting with Bashir was just character regression rather than development. And it wasn't really on her part so much as it was on his. So, I mean, he wasn't exactly one of my favorites to begin with. I don't dislike him, but honestly, Space Karen is really the only character I truly hate on that show. High win for anyone who doesn't get what I'm joking at there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's this funny meme that's like, you know, it's like a picture of Kira and it says, oh, within good, there is some capacity for evil. And there's a picture of Gul Dukat. It says, within evil, there's some capacity for good. And then it's like Cisco, like both good and evil, which I don't quite agree with, but okay, we'll take that. And then at the bottom, it's Skywin. It says, and then there's Space Karen. I just think that's hilarious.
Clearly we've seen the same meme here.
Yeah. Oh, look, Mark has decided to join us.
I don't see another name.
There he is.
Hello, Mark. Welcome to the insanity? I don't know.
Sure, welcome to the insanity. How's it going, Mark?
Oh, you know,
Not able to read, evidently. Don't know how numbers work. Not real sure what this whole, time zone thing is. So
Time is a construct.
yeah, totally. I'm sorry about that, folks.
I'm sorry for tying you down to linear time.
You have got your nerve. I'll tell you right now. Some nerve, buddy. Some nerve.
So how you been doing, Mark, since we didn't get you for the introductions?
I'm on the mend, as you can see. Well, actually, you can't see it. My JP drains are just out of sight of this, which is everybody in the internet land is going to be really thankful for, because it's not attractive at all. But I'm healing up.
Okay.
Each day is a gift.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a journey. It's been a pretty emotionally fraught 5 years, but this is sort of as soon as this comes out, I'll get the victory lap. So yeah. Otherwise, okay, man.
All right, good deal. So yeah, we were actually talking. So just really quick, let us know. Did you watch Deep Space Nine at the time, or is it something that you went back to watch after?
No, I watched it at the time.
Okay.
I watched it all through the 90s. And I'll tell you, I watched it in a way that I didn't watch The Next Generation. I actually, after classic Shatner Trek, Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek. And so yeah, I was there on the ground floor, digging it mightily.
Yeah, for me, it's in. DS9 is my favorite, but Shatner Trek is my next favorite. So I'm there with you.
I consider TNG my favorite, but DS9 the best Trek.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think so too. I think it had the best. I think it had the best linear sort of storyline. It had a point and a purpose. They weren't just sort of out there flying loosey goosey. They showed up with a premise, and a mission, and I thought that was great. In a way that Classic Trek and Next Generation weren't able to really do. And I know some of that was probably by design. I think Deep Space Nine was the first time they had a chance to say, let's look somewhere else for these stories. And I think that was a pretty rich vein that they mined for that.
So we've been talking about favorite characters, and Miranda talked about Ezri Dax. And so who is your favorite character, Mark?
I'm a captain's guy, Cisco. I mean, I'm not, come on. He was fantastic. I thought that was inspired casting. Avery Brooks was great. And there's a noticeable tonal shift in season 4 as soon as he shaves his head and gets the goatee. Like all of a sudden, like whatever residual, I don't know if I want to do this, sort of goes away, and he turns into, this just he's 37% more badass that way, and anybody, and anybody that can kind of stand, that's the same season we get Worf, and so anybody that can stand, face to face with Michael Dorn in full Worfiness and sort of give as good as he's getting, that's cool, and that's something we hadn't seen before, hitherto. This is one of the things that I loved about DS9 was, and it's something that I think we've lost in contemporary culture, is show don't tell. Right? You can look at certain scenes in DS9 and notice that the black man in the captain's chair is delegating and dealing with a bridge crew that's half female, right? and that's a thing that, at the time they never really sort of made a big deal about it, but it was a big deal, especially because everybody else in command positions were, Nana Visitor and Terry, Dax. They were, thank you. They were the two
other anchor points on here. When Sisko wasn't dealing with, the Bajoran, religious people or anything like that. I just thought that was great. He had all these disparate elements sort of swirling around him, and I think he made the most out of that character, especially season 4 going forward. You just get the tone locks in, the war starts up, it becomes really, there's a drive to it. He doesn't ever really lose that contemplative edge. I just finished watching this morning the episode from season 6 where he and Garrett try to get the Romulans to come in. And what I loved about that episode, it starts with him doing his captain's log, and he can't remember the date, and this, then it becomes the whole thing is his log told, with him periodically breaking in to sort of offer a commentary on all the duplicitous and horrible things he has to do, that really besmirches the integrity of the captaincy and Starfleet in general. It's a lot of duplicitous, underhanded stuff. You could argue, and I did at the time, well, this is war. But I go back, I think back on it, and one of the things that they relied on in this war was that, obviously Starfleet is a Geneva Convention sort of, thing. We don't torture prisoners and so on and so forth. But he agonizes over that. He agonizes over having to blur these gray, these black and white lines become shades of gray.
I can live with this. I can live with it. He has to convince himself at the end. There's that line. Yeah.
That's not something I ever saw in an episode of Trek. Certainly not classic Trek, where Kirk just was like, his happy misogynistic colonialism will just see him through. We're good.
Well, the thing is, this is a decision Picard couldn't make. Like, Picard is the moral, upstanding Gene Roddenberry perfection, moralistically captain. And so it's interesting that they let Sisko have that moral grayness. That
moral ambiguity was one of the things that I'd never seen in a Trek before. And it was so cool to see the show wrestling with it. And the show never tells you what to think. Many of those episodes in those later wartime stories end by just sort of backing away and going, well, that's that. What do you think, fellas?
But we're veering a little now into more like themes and storylines and stuff. So, but yeah, Sisko is your favorite character on the show.
Totes. Yes.
All right. So Stephanie, you already kind of told us who yours was, but why don't you just say it out and talk about your favorite?
Well, I mean, I absolutely adore Jadzia. She kicked butt and I loved her, and I don't really have any specific things to say other than, I adored her. But since I think so many people absolutely share that opinion, at least in the Star Trek fandom that I've experienced, let's go ahead and have a little more interesting discussion on my secondary favorite, who would be everyone's favorite Gay Taylor.
Don't you dare take my favorite character.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll let Juliet talk about him then.
All right, but I think Jadzia warrants just a little discussion because I think that I think fan opinion is generally very positive about Jadzia, but there's also a very big shift in Jadzia, who starts out as a very reserved character. And you can tell towards the end of season 2 that either she's told the writers she's not happy, or they've just decided to, do something about it. And then we have that first episode where she hangs out with Kor, Koleth, and Kang. And, and suddenly Jadzia comes alive, right?
Oh, and I think that's one of my favorite things is she's not exactly petite, but she is so into the Klingon culture and just does not look it at all. And probably as a person who was very not the typical look for a metalhead, especially in high school and such, I probably related a bit to that bit of shock of, you're into that stuff. Alrighty then. But no, I think you're right there. She does have her finally. Words are not developing properly right now.
Hey, Stephanie,
What's up?
What did you like more about her regarding relationships? Did you like that she and Worf got married, or did you like her friendship with the captain?
I liked them both in their own ways. She and Worf were definitely, they're a Star Trek couple. They have problems just by being a pairing in Star Trek. But they had an interesting dynamic. And the way Worf's character had already been developed both through Next Gen and DS9, I think it's great that he finally did find a partner who, wasn't a Klingon, because he's not a Klingon. He's a walking stereotype of a Klingon who is nothing like all the Klingons we meet throughout the entirety of the franchise.
Okay, I'm just going to say it right here. It's the best freaking romance that's in Star Trek in all of the series.
It really is. And yet it still is rather problematic at times. But yes, you are right. They do have the best romance. And their wedding is fantastic too.
Doesn't she get like hungover after the wedding? Because I remember the episode where she's like holding her head.
It was the bachelorette party the night before. I just watched that one last night.
Oh yeah.
But then her relationship with Sisko, especially considering the fact that he knew oh gosh, I'm spacing on the deck beforehand. Curzon, that's it. And just the way that he still talks to her, calling her old man and such. And she just goes right along with it. I just thought that they had a real great dynamic of having that very long time friendship while also simultaneously having a new friendship. And basically between Worf and Sisko, you saw how much trust she placed in both of them, and just had great dynamics in how she played off of both of them in completely different ways, but yet still very similar.
Yeah, I getting back a little bit to Ezri, I do have to say though that this whole nonsense about the Trill not being able to carry forward relationships from their previous lives is so bogus, because it's like Ezri went back to the same ship and even like hooked up with somebody that like was interested in the previous life and all of that stuff. It's just, and Kurt, like, and the whole thing with like the Curzon stuff carrying forward into Jadzia. But what's funny to me though is Rachel became so enamored with the Curzon stories that she was like, they need to make a prequel series of Sisko and Curzon, because she wanted to see like all this stuff.
I'd watch out of that. Yeah,
so would I.
Yeah, that would be
she also wanted a Guinan and Picard series. But yeah, no, Jadzia is so good because it's like, I mean, it's what everything Miranda said, and while I agree with you that like you don't have to be a strong woman by being those things, the fact that she is intelligent, assertive, strong as far as like even physical strength and being a fighter and all that kind of stuff. It's like she's the Renaissance, woman, she's the whole package. And so it's just really good that like, like she's just such a cool, compelling character.
And not only did she have those strong relationships with male characters, but then she also had a fantastic friendship with Kira. Mm-hmm. And the two of them had a great dynamic as well. And both of them were horrible influences on each other. And I don't know, maybe that's my own headcanon taking over, that the two of them would just goad each other into mischief all the time.
I think you're right. I think in this respect, Dax was sort of the glue. Mm-hmm. She was the social lubricant and the glue, because all of these other people were in their head a lot of the time they had and she was not. She was much more of a I'm out here right now kind of a vein. She pulled Worf out, she pulled Cisco out, she got Kira to open up. She's kind of the linchpin, I think, to the series. So.
And kudos to Terry Farrell for being a very young actress and being able to pull off the idea of like the wisdom, both the wisdom of the ages and also the idea of if you've lived that long, you also know how to have fun, and so it's like sort of that kind of character.
She really gave the impression, like with Julian, that she was so much older than him, and it was just like patting him on the head.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I know, it's so funny because now in hindsight, after seeing the fact that she does have like sort of like flings and casual relationships with people before Worf, you have to realize that when she tells Julian that, oh, Trill don't do that sort of thing, she was just saying that to him. It's just like, no man, like I'm not interested.
And I think that that's even a thing that they did keep with Ezri. Even though she was kind of a little bit more self-conscious and everything, she still was the type who was like almost an introverted extrovert, where she could very easily fit with these other people and help keep that connection that Jadzia had with all of them while still pulling in her own unique self. I mean, the Dax character alone is fun because we have 3 different people to talk about Dax with, and yeah.
Yeah, I will say though, for Ezri, her relationship with Cisco is definitely my favorite because I like when she falls into the old like Curzon and the clasping the hands behind the back, but also Cisco can help pull her out when she's like unsure or whatever, and remind her of like, remember, you're Dax, you've got all of this stuff that you can call upon, and I really love the Cisco and Ezri dynamic.
Yeah.
So Juliet's. Let's talk about your favorite.
It was my favorite since the first time I saw him, and I still don't know why. I don't know whether it was the smile, the cock of the head, the way that he spoke, but plain and simple Garak,
a humble tailor.
Yeah, exactly. He was my favorite from the very beginning because you knew there was nothing plain and simple about him. Right. You knew that he was totally ready if Julian just gave him a nod that he was going to just go take him straight to a holosuite. You knew this. The best part is that like the actor's like, oh no, that was kind of how I totally planned to play him. And I'm like, yes. But the background on that man, the fact that he always, he was indeed a spy, and he was a fantastic spy during the war and afterwards, and he managed to keep everybody guessing and trusting him but not trusting him at the same time, down to the episode in the Pale Moonlight that Mark was talking about, where it's Garak that Cisco goes to, and Garak is like, we're doing it, that's this,
because he knows that there's going to be something that he probably can't do and that Garak can,
and that Garak won't have a problem with it.
Right. Yeah, and so Cisco thinks it's just, maybe we'll lie a little bit. And then it's like, oh, no, some people got to die to make this thing work.
And Garak tells him, like, this is what had to happen. You asked for it. I did it. He has this beautiful moral ambiguity about him, but he also maintains these friendships that seem very precious to him, even if he doesn't want to admit it to people. Like, you almost want to think that he would, if anybody were to ask him, he's totally using these people, like, for whatever reason, he's just storing up things for when he might need them. But I loved every episode that went further into his background and who he was and how he had been on Cardassia. And we go to Cardassia, and it's just, he's no longer plain and simple Garak, but at the same time, that's what he'll always be. He really was a tailor of many things. You talk about a character that we talked about Jadzia being the glue of the main crew too. I think Garak wove together a fantastic tapestry for with all of these characters. I don't think it would be the same.
He could also cut the threads of life if he needed to. Yeah.
Exactly.
If we're going to use that metaphor, yeah.
it's just every time I think about him in episodes, he would invite Julian to come by to try something on and then shove him into a dressing room as Lursa and Betor come in and they're having conversations and Julian comes back out and is like, what's going on? I know nothing. I don't even know what you overheard. It's just beautiful. And Andrew Robinson played him to a T perfectly. There's a book that he wrote for DS9 in the DS9 series called A Stitch in Time. He actually wrote it. I can't not read it hearing his voice. It's just, he's that good.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So you obviously told us how you feel, Juliet. I'm curious how everybody feels. Do you think it would have been better to like hold the mystery on Garak, or do you think that it was good that we learned basically his backstory throughout the, I mean, not all the details, but we pretty much know how his life went. What do you think, Stephanie?
I think that they did a good balance of leaving mystery to it while also giving us answers. And he's also the type of character where even though we do get that backstory reveal, it does also still leave you wondering how much of that is still true. Because, he's just... The character himself was just so expertly written as... Well, I don't even know if it was necessarily the writing so much as a portrayal of a just duplicitous, complicated character. And I also love the fact that he was intentionally playing Garak to have an attraction to Juliet, to the point where the writers stopped writing them together, hoping to splash that down, and it did not work.
No, you can't keep that down.
No, you cannot. And they had already developed too much of a interconnectivity between the two of them where they couldn't actually keep them apart either. But no, he is, like, when I say Jadzia is my favorite, Garrett's like right below her. It's hard to distinguish between the two of them.
For a non-main character.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, I mean, like, when you look at how many episodes he has, I mean, it's less than half. I mean, of the total series. It's fun. It's funny how, like, just how beloved Garak is to, most DS9 fans, with having, substantially less screen time than most of the characters.
And honestly, I think that's something they did beautifully throughout the whole show. Like, I was surprised when I realized how few episodes Kai Wynn is in for how much I hate her.
Yeah.
And again, it was the actor just played the role perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But they both her actress and Garrett's actress, I think I just called him Garrett instead of Garak. Anyways, both of their actors just played these characters with so much personality, where they stole the show in any scene that they were in, and they did feel like characters that were always there. Even though they were just secondary or even third-dairy characters. Tertiary, that's it. I knew it wasn't third-airy, but I could not think of the actual word.
My new favorite words right there.
Yeah. So yeah, Miranda, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like they gave away too much on Garak?
No, I don't think so. I think they did a good job of like giving us stuff and then kind of just giving the grain of doubt. Is this true or not? Do we know? So there's always a little wiggle room in there. And I think that works because, Garak, he's a spy, the whole thing about a spy is it's all duplicity. It's all, facades and stuff. And I think, it's enough that, it's like, it's tantalizing, is it real? Is it not? And I think it worked, I think it really worked.
I hear what you guys are saying on that, but since we meet other characters who corroborate the things that he said, like about that he was an Albrantain's kid and that this stuff, and
we know he was in the Obsidian Order,
right, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we never really got that ambiguity after a certain point, like after like season 4 or 5, when they just kind of like were like, this is who he is.
I think even from the beginning, before they explicitly spelled out, we all knew he was a spy. We all know he was something more than he said. That wasn't like a reveal, really. I mean, like we all like it was set up.
Well, I'm talking about that he's Tane's kid, though. Like that, like is pretty much a fact. Too many people have backed that up, So it's
part of what makes him work as well as he does is that he is one of the two Cardassians we get the most of.
Yes.
Right. Gul Dukat is the other side of this. And those two characters really inform what we know of Cardassians, aside from what Kira tells us and what we know of the occupation and so forth. The majority of what we get from all of that is the two of them, and we get the impression that both of them were exceptions rather than the rule for their people. And so I think you kind of can't have one without the other. I love the fact that they are both eloquent in their dissembling. There's this wonderful introductory repartee that both of them employ whenever they're dealing with anybody. That is as a writer, linguistically, that's so much fun to watch the preamble and the dance as they get down to what they need to. And to reference another episode, that one in the nebula where Gul Dukat and Sisko are together, and Dukat's trying to get a pardon from Sisko, that he didn't earn, and there's that whole beautifully directed by Rene Auberjonois, by the way, but that whole unspooling of Dukat's character, he's laid bare, and that's really kind of the culmination of his character arc. And I think the culmination of Garrick's character arc is in the Pale Moonlight, where we finally see them sort of naked, past all of the point of pretense. This is who they are. And it's obvious that this was a Cold War analogy, specifically an end of the Soviet era Cold War analogy. I mean, that's when they made it. It's this thing sort of is built upon the collapse of the Soviet Union, and so it's not hard to use the KGB for the Obsidian Order and all of that stuff. But I think that you have to kind of look at both of them. And the way that they play off of each other and the other characters. And, Dukat is the snake, right? He's literally the cobra. There's honeyed words and a need to convey. It's almost, if in another universe, everything he would say would be a Jedi mind trick. He cannot over convince you of the veracity of his claims. And I think the difference between him and Garrett is Garrett doesn't bother with trying to convince you, but he's still going to go through the artifice of, I'm just a humble tailor. Right. And oh no. My powers have been greatly exaggerated, Captain. Yeah. Oh, come on.
All right. We are going to talk about Dukat in a little bit, but one thing that I did want to say, though, just comparing the two, like what you did, is the interesting thing is that Garrick, despite the fact that he is this accomplished master spy, his desire, his loyalty is always for what's best for Cardassia. He is not someone who wants power. He does not want, anything for himself. He just wants what's best for his world. Whereas Gul Dukat is all about himself. He'll say like it's all for the glory of Cardassia, but it's really all for the glory of Gul Dukat is what he wants. And so that's an interesting dynamic between them, because it's why Garrick is a redeemable figure, whereas Gul Dukat is not a redeemable figure, because he is all about himself. Whereas Garrick, he might do shady things, but he at least has desire for, there to be goodness, if I have to kill somebody to create peace, I'll do that. But that's the goal, is to create peace, kind of thing. But yeah, since my favorite Sisko was taken, I'm going to talk about Odo, who I absolutely adore. Played by Renee Auberjonois, who I knew from Benson. If anyone remembers Benson, a sitcom from the mid '80s. But yeah, it was very interesting because we've had the outsider figure before. We've had Data, we had Spock. But here, they developed Odo as the whole fact that he was the outsider, but then dovetailed that into the plot and revealed that the people behind the Dominion are his people. And so we never had that aspect before. Data was by himself, so we had that aspect before of the lonely outsider. That nobody and Spock, since he was a half human, half Vulcan, that was kind of like an only thing. But still, he had some roots, some things he could explore. But the fact that Odo, we actually discover his people, and that they're the bad guys, allowed him like an extra level of development as part of that. I don't know how controversial it's going to be in this crowd. I really wish they hadn't gone for the Kim and Kira getting together thing. It just smacks of the writers being like, well, we like Odo, so we want to give him something happy. Whereas I felt the episode where they addressed it, where the idea that, Kira was getting together with Shakar, Odo realized that, hey, you know what? Even though I'm in love with her, she's not in love with me and I have to move on. I felt like, wow, that's a really mature episode, like especially after we've had Julian basically stalk Dax throughout the whole first season. To have an episode that sort of says like, this is how you can handle this, that sometimes you have very strong feelings towards someone, they don't return it, and then it's like, okay, well, you just move on, and you find somebody else or whatever. And it always just felt like going backwards to me with the whole relationship. It didn't seem like Kira was that she was attracted to him at all, and it just seemed like, hey, like we're giving you a gift, Odo, by the writers, like here's your gift. And I don't know, because
it's only a little bit better of a romance than Seven and Chakotay.
Oh, you wwent for the lowest
not
of the
that
low
bad
bars on Trek Romance.
Oh, it's not that bad. Nothing's that bad. Let's not bring that up.
Like I said, it's better, but not by much.
Yeah, it's funny because in the documentary they're talking about like how, because they bring that up, and Ira Stephen Bear, who was the head writer on the show, was like, well, it's because we'd see these scenes and you guys were just giving us like this attraction and whatever. And I'm like, what scenes were you watching? I've watched this show through several times and I've never seen any indication that Kira had any feelings for Odo besides friendship. Like, yeah, like, and the fact that he was someone who worked with the Cardassians that she's then friends with was something they never gave enough mileage to. They mentioned it a few times, but I would have loved to have seen that side of things, develop more. But like, yeah, like I never saw romance between Kira.
No, not at all.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, one of the things that were just like so interesting to watch is that, like there's clearly like deep love between them that's obviously platonic on Kira's part and it's romantic on Odo's part, and it's just like it rips your heart out, but it's so meaty and it's so good, and that's like, honestly, I mean, one of the things that, for me about Deep Space Nine is that like, it's most of the time it just like, it's emotionally devastating and it tears your heart out, but it's good, like in a good way. Like I measure how good a DS9 episode, but like how much did this like break my heart and rip it into shreds? Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause it just like, it does it so well. And it's like, I think it kind of lost a bit of that like poetic ache when they just had them get together, because like the kind of the thing that was great about it is like, like you feel for him and but it can't work, like the tragedy was kind of better than when they were together. I mean, like I don't hate them together, but I also don't think it like entirely worked. So I'm just like, I would have stayed with like the poetic unrequited tragedy of it,
Oh, I wouldn't have even minded if they introduced a new character or had Odo like finally get to the point where he was like, I will open myself to other people or things like that.
Yeah,
like that would have been interesting development. But like, yeah, I just, and you're right. I mean, like, I don't hate it, but it just seemed forced and wrong to me. And that was like kind of the issue with it. But I love it.
There was a lot about Odo that I thought was forced. He's probably of the main characters, I think he's my least favorite.
I'm right with you, Mark. I am right with you.
All right, come on.
I think the most interesting that he is in the early seasons when he's the sheriff that can appear out of nowhere and stop the shenanigans from Quark and everybody else. Like, that's the stuff I like the best.
Yep.
And the more they layered onto him and made him a changeling, which was part of the Dominion, which the more of that went on, the more it just made me nuts. And I thought the saving grace of that was that Kira was gonna reach a breaking point with him, right? He's supposed to be helping with the resistance, and instead he's too busy doing elbow sex with what's her nuts. And it feels like she can't come back from that, but they get together.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, I agree with Miranda. The tragedy of Odo, like that does it for me. I love all the tragic stuff with Odo, and honestly, I and Mark kind of got there already. Like, the funny thing to me is that his best friend, I mean, I guess arguably because Kira, but then they became lovers, so it's kind of. But his best friend, other than Kira, is Quark.
Right.
And that is the fascinating part of it, that this is this guy that he's always, like, keeping his eye on to, to do this shady stuff, but he loves the game.
Right. It's the Rick and Claude Rains relationship from Casablanca. Right. Each knows what the other is doing and, is okay with, playing their part in it, Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love their relationship.
I'm with Mark on this. I did not find Odo to be heartbreaking or tragic at all. I found him to be annoying and creepy with Kira. And I really just wanted him to go to the Dominion and become a bad guy. Because seriously, the only times I truly liked Odo was when he was paired up with Quark, and the two of them just had such an excellent rivalry with each other. Whereas otherwise, I just thought Odo was a stick in the mud, except he was the mud, not the stick.
See what you did there?
Yeah, the one where he and Quark have crashed on the planet that's barely habitable, and this is when Odo's been stuck in a humanoid form, and they have to go up the mountain to do the signal and all of that. That episode is great. I mean, that is pure gold.
When he's paired up with Quark, he's great, but otherwise, I don't share your sympathies or admiration for Odo at all.
But hey, you know what? That's just your journey, and we're cool with it, right?
All right, Juliet, you got to weigh in here. You haven't weighed in.
I see both points. I both like Odo, and for the most part, but then also got a little tired with some of the Changeling storyline, the Dominion storyline that happened. I did feel a little creepy with Kira's turnaround, if only because of the whole, hey, she's like, I have no feelings toward you that way, but you're one of my best friends. And then it got pursued, and then they went into it. It kind of gave me the same creepy feelings as, Geordi on the holodeck with Leia Brahm. That they kind of get, and then later on, and he's meets her real, he meets the real person, and he's like, well, you could just give me a chance. That's kind of the creepy feeling I got.
Yeah, that's what's what's even worse is that they got them together after the fact, where it's just no, that is wrong. That was unhealthy.
And I'm not
I pretend that didn't happen. I just block it on my mind, not canon. I don't like it, so it's gone.
Maybe it couldn't have happened. Maybe honestly, she, was the feelings developed. I just felt like that part felt forced, and I didn't appreciate it. Otherwise, I did like him. I also loved his buddy stories with Quark, the one where everybody had aphasia and they were the only two left on the trying to stop everything from happening. I don't know, the two of them, definitely fun. I've also always loved the actor. I remember seeing him first in MASH and Little Mermaid, or hearing
he's the chef in Little Mermaid. He's the voice.
But my mom brought me up watching MASH, and so I knew him as Father Mulcahy. But it was just very natural to immediately fall into liking Odo. I felt like they let his character down a bit toward the end, though. The writing for his character could have been better toward the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, especially that one episode where he's banging the bad founder lady and he's supposed to be in love with Kira. I'm just cultural exchange or not, that's just nasty, Odo. Come on. Come on.
That's what the kids are
No.
calling it nowadays.
Yeah, you
was a
merge
great
with everybody.
episode,
That's
though.
nasty. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
they had solid sex. It was so gross. Like, oh my God. It's like, oh, why? Why, Odo? Ew.
All right, but at that point, it's poor judgment. But when you consider the fact that Odo was like a 50-something-year-old virgin, I mean, I cut him just a little bit of slack.
No.
No.
He wasn't in a
She's
relationship
evil.
with Kira at that point.
Still creepy.
If you're in a war, you don't bang the enemy. Like, even if they're your people. It's gross.
But I do want to mention
And
that
that's
episode with
exactly-
Dax, though. Remember when he takes on the personality of Curzon.
Mm.
That's one of my. I guess it's technically not an Odo thing, but it was one of my favorite episodes where Odo.
Oh yeah, Rene Auberjonois is a great actor. I mean, like he even did the one where the one where Cisco's having the dream of him as Benny, whatever the last name was, and they all have different roles, and he's like the nasty editor, and like all that. Like Rene Auberjonois, I think is a fantastic character actor. Yeah.
Absolutely. And honestly, like I think like one of the things that is just like so underappreciated about Star Trek is just the caliber of acting that you get from every single actor, like every single episode. I mean, it's everything, like especially with like Next Gen and DS9. I feel like the writing is so meaty, and then the actors are so good, and it's just like the quality. I mean, the fact that like there were never like any Emmy nominations or wins is just like, that's why I don't even think of the Emmys as a thing that matters, because it's like Star Trek, those two series were like the best written, the best acted shows on TV in the 90s, bar none, like in my opinion. And it's just always such a treat to watch. Like it's just you watch, it's so good. I mean, like it's just
one of my standouts for me is Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to bring him up too.
Who got to
he
who
was
got
so
to
many
double
characters.
dip. Yeah, he got to double dip, which was awesome.
A triple, at least three. He does at least three, and although one of them was a one-off, but he's at least three characters in DS9.
Yeah, the two recurring.
Right.
And so what was so great about that? Of course, Jeffrey Combs is one of these guys where you can't see him not go, that's Jeffrey Combs, right? I mean, he's singular in his look, the way he speaks. And so it was really nice to watch him bend into the shape of, a founder or a Cardassian. And I loved Weyoun. He was so much fun. You're right. They had great actors who got to do a lot. And I gotta tell you, I was, all of that stuff's on Paramount Plus, so I'm going back through to refresh my memory, and I'm literally doing almost a scan because I'm looking for storylines, and I'm like 24 episodes. What the hell, guys? Good Lord, and I'm having to skip 3 to get to the next part of the war. It's just, oh my God, so much stuff. I have a respect for the amount of work that they had to put in. They were working half a year, on those seasons. And it was significant.
Yeah, no, definitely. But yeah, I don't think we can move around. There's so many things to talk about with this show, but I feel like we do need to sort of talk about Julian, both because we have the bromance of him with Miles, which I think is one of the highlights of the show, but we also have, the sort of stalkery, won't take no for an answer version of Julian that we get in the beginning. That then we already talked about gets kind of problematic when it's like, but then he kind of gets Dax at the end, even though it's a different Dax, and it's kind of like, ooh, guys, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, like, what does everybody think about, both the Julian and Miles relationship, but also like, because even some of those tendencies show up later, like the one where Julian is trying to help the one genetically enhanced woman who won't speak, but then he also wants to have a relationship with her. And it's kind of like, there's a real conflict of interest here that he doesn't seem to see. And it's kind of creepy in that aspect. So I'm just kind of curious, because I've heard, you know, because a lot of people love Julian and Miles. It's one of the highlights of the series. But then I also hear some people talk about, I know Julian is just like dead to me because he's such an awful character. So I'm just kind of
Julian
curious.
has issues with boundaries, that's for sure.
Right.
But while he and Miles had a great relationship, I definitely think of him and Garrick together more than I go to him and Miles. So, I mean, Miles was the thing keeping DS9 together, that's for sure. If it weren't for him, that space station would have fallen into the wormhole. But
I think both Julian and Miles. Now, I like Miles more than Julian. Julian's my second least favorite after Odo. I think both of those characters were utility players, right?
Mhm.
They were there to plug a hole in whatever plot needed plugging.
Yep.
And initially, you know, it was like, oh, we need some romantic tension. We'll stick Julian here. We can't use Miles for that because we know he's all set up already. But, you know, if we need something else to happen, we can put Miles in on this, you know, to sort of fill out a team, or he, you know, he'll be the one that sort of gives us our plot coupon du jour. So I think both of them were kind of interchangeable in that respect. And I think once we got, you know, I think there's a line of demarcation here with season 4. You know, there's two halves of DS9, and it's 1 through 3 and then 4 through 7. After season 4, I think Miles falls into place better because he gets to be more of a wartime consigliere in that respect. He gets more duties on the ship, you know, that sort of give him his sort of Enterprise analogy. Bashir never gets that. So I think, you know, Miles emerges a little bit more triumphant on the other end of that. He gets some better solo stories, and I don't think I don't think Julian ever gets settled, and that's one of the things that I don't like about him is what he does changes from episode to episode, and it's very hard for me to hang any kind of consistency on. Does anybody, am I blowing wind, or does anybody see it? You know?
No, and in fact, like the whole like he's genetically enhanced thing comes out of left field and is clearly like if you watch the show through from the beginning, like it feels like you know, because I watch for it now and I'm like there's several like little indications that like, you know, like that doesn't really work as far as like a story idea.
See, honestly, I disagree about this because that to me, like that's when his character clicked and made sense. Because like in the beginning, I hated him. I thought he was an arrogant, obnoxious jerk who just had like no, you know, had no emotional awareness, no care about anyone but himself, you know. And it's like, you know, as the series goes on, you see him grow, you see him get kind of humbled a number of times, and you see him kind of go through this growth. And then with the revelation of the genetic engineering thing, you go, oh, now I get it. All that obnoxious arrogance, this was overcompensating. And like you see like, okay, there's a human underneath there. And like it starts to make sense why he's the way he is. And I really appreciate that. And I think he does progress. I mean, obviously, he still makes terrible romantic choices throughout the entire series. That's just not his
He's
forte,
our Geordie in this show.
You know, which some people, no matter how they are, never really get to that. But I feel like as a human, like as a person and as a doctor, I think you do see him grow and become a more, you know, mature, wiser person as time goes on. And I think, you know, I appreciate that. I mean, he did become a character that I really liked toward the end, and it was kind of my crush character. So that's why I'm letting the thing with him and Esri slide, because when your self-insert character and your crush character get together in canon, you're a 12-year-old girl, you don't question it, you just do a victory dance. You know, but like I do actually think he had a nice arc, and I think it was nice to have a character who started out kind of a jerk and got better, where, because you know, usually in Star Trek is like everybody's perfect, and you know, it's you know, they're just these, you know, paragons of virtue from the beginning, and it's kind of nice to see someone who's an grow into being not, you know. So I think yes, less
I had not considered that as an arc, and so that's actually, I think, a very cool observation. I still think that in terms of story mechanics, he bounced around a lot and sort of was filler. But I think you're right about his character. Yeah, when the genetic stuff comes up, he settles into it. I wish maybe they'd done it sooner.
Right. Yeah, Mark,
Yeah,
I see your hatred, and I respond with Our Man Bashir, which is one of the greatest episodes in that series.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I
Every
do
dog
kind
has
of
his
agree
day.
with Mark. I do kind of agree with Mark that he was not as he was kind of a character who came into play when he was needed.
Mhm.
However, I had the same feeling with Miranda that, yeah, he definitely made a lot more sense when they introduced that whole.
I thought you were going to say he was your
genetic
crush
engineering
character.
thing. Oh no! I never had the thing for him.
You have better taste than I do. Oh God.
I was still crushing on Sheridan and his perfect hair. Okay.
I swear, after every scene, he would go and he'd take the hairspray and he would do that. But anyway, that's not the show.
Anyways, I do kind of think that it was just a secondary thought, though, that it was definitely not something they originally thought for his character, but they did retcon well enough with introducing that and having it be basically him overcompensating to try to be normal, so to speak.
Oh, they definitely did the work to try to rehabilitate him. It just seems weird to me that even after that, we still have him like preying on like a patient of his.
Well, again, he had issues with boundaries, and that's a very real characteristic that people have.
Yeah. But I do want to say about the thing with Miles, though, that the thing that I appreciated about it is we got to see two characters have a normal friendship on a Star Trek series. Like if we had holodecks, like two guys going and pretending to be like fighter pilots or fighting in the Alamo or, even doing the Our Man Bashir things and all that kind of stuff. And I love the fact that Miles was the villain in that. So he got to try to kill Julian in those. And I thought that was funny, given that like Miles starts out as not being able to stand Julian. And it's just like Julian's persistence with Miles actually ends up becoming like this friendship of like just taking the guy that absolutely hates you and just like wearing him down. And that's funny in a way that it's not when it's somebody that you're trying to have a romantic interest with. And I don't, I
feel
know
the same way about you, Nathan.
Thanks. But I did like the buddy aspect about it. And I thought that was nice to bring like a sort of humanity to the show.
With no apologies, they hang out, they talk. It was very normal. That was good. Yeah,
I think Star Trek does their bromances a lot better than their romances, honestly.
Most definitely.
Whichever character has bromance they get good development. They're just probably should stick with that.
Yeah, because I mean the Geordi Data thing was
in New Trek.
Yeah, the Geordi and Data thing was really good, but that tended to be more though sci-fi, like more about can we prove Data is human and stuff like that. Whereas this is just two people just having fun like two people do. But Juliet, did you want to weigh in on this at all?
I was just thinking about how, like, I feel like Julian had an inability to connect, a desire, this need to connect with people from the fact that he probably didn't get that, as a child. I related to him in a weird way. He was definitely not my crush character, but I could relate to the whole parents pushed you to be the best, to make the good grades, to get through as fast as you could. And he, in a weird way, I think Miles almost came to view him like a little brother in a way. Which is how the little brother finally wears you down. You start playing darts with him, and you want to protect him and take care of him, and you end up maybe enjoying spending time with him. When it came out that he was genetically engineered, and about his parents and so on, it really made sense. And to me, that just kind of cemented the fact that this man doesn't know how to connect, at least not healthily in many ways. His healthiest relationships were probably with O'Brien and Garrick of all people. But I agree, his trying to wear down his romantic interest was still creepy, and you don't get to forgive that exactly. But at least I could understand where he was coming from, I think, is because he just desired a connection with people that he never had. And he was starting to get it in many cases. He even developed a friendship with Jadzia because she was just really good at brushing him off and putting him back in his place.
Yes. Yeah. Let's there's so much to talk about with Deep Space Nine. I wish that we could do this like over several episodes, but I do want to talk about villains, because one of the things that Deep Space Nine gives us, because it's in a fixed location, is that we can have reoccurring villains in a way that we really didn't in the other Star Treks. We might have a race that pops up from time to time, but we have very few villains that even appeared in 2 different episodes, let alone have their own arcs and everything. So we have Kai Wynn, we have Gul Dukat, we have the main founder, I guess, we can call her, and Weyoun, and even Brunt, if you want to throw Brunt FCA. And so you've got like basically 5 villains that reoccur on the series. If somebody can think of another one, maybe there's another one. Those are the 5 that come to mind for me.
I love that 2 were played by Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, two by Jeffrey Combs, yes. So yeah, the question becomes like, what do you guys think about sort of the villain characters, in the series? We talked a little bit about Gul Dukat, we talked a little bit about Kai Wynn, but do you think they all worked? Do you think there were some that didn't work? Like, what did you like about them? But we got to get this kind of pacey just to move on. But let's start with you on this one, Juliet. What did you think about the villains on the series?
I thought the villains, for the most part, were very well done. Like, I have this weird love-hate for Dukat simply because he is a fantastic villain. He gets really creepy at the end, and that's even part of the whole joy. You love to hate on Kai Wynn because she is you're meant to hate everything about her.
Yes, that's,
and I kind of am okay with all of that. Brunt, I love the Ferengi, and I felt like he was Brunt FCA. I mean, how could you not love everything that he did, as part of being a better Ferengi? Because for the record, Quark was my secret crush. But man, I love it. My favorite villain was one that you didn't name and was in a single episode, and it was the episode that had Kira confronting a Cardassian who was the Butcher. And it turned out he really wasn't the Butcher. He had been the clerk and was so paralyzed by the fact that he did nothing to stop any of that massacre. He felt so awful that he decided he was going to, make up for it by saying he was that person and being punished for it because he felt he deserved it. And the fact that it made Kira realize that, because at the end when he's assassinated, he's murdered, and she's like, that wasn't even him. And the Bajoran is like, it doesn't matter. He was a Cardassian. And you see Kira get that look in her face that she's like, and that's how she's always thought. But this one Cardassian villain, I say with air quotes that nobody that listens to our podcast can see, made her reconsider that. So he's one of my favorite villains. But I think that DS9, minus the founders, who I just kind of got sick of, they had some really good villains. The long-running ones, when you had an entire race like the Jem'Hadar that turned out to not always be villains, they were complex. How about that? Yeah. Our villains were complex, whether it be a single person or a species.
I think that founder problem, though, is exactly why they had Weyoun as a character, because they realized they needed somebody with charisma to be the face of the Dominion. Because the thing is, the founders are boring, but Weyoun is never boring. Right. So, it really helps when, you have Weyoun, interacting with the other characters.
You're right, Juliet. It's the complexity. And it was, again, something that we weren't afforded before in the other Treks, as Nathan pointed out. That Dukat episode I mentioned earlier, where he and where his character is laid bare. 3 or 4 episodes before that, as they're retaking DS9, his daughter is killed, shot fatally, and dies in his arms. It's impossible to not be sympathetic to him, right? And in fact, there's a point at which, no matter what else happens, has happened up to that point, you're still willing to give Dukat some latitude, some leeway. And the fact that you can be so sympathetic and feel his loss, well, she was a cool character anyways, but the fact that he never got, that, he never got his moment with her, which is what he wanted. I love that, because then we turn around and whatever lingering sympathy you had, or whatever feels you might have built up based on that, Rene Auberjonois just tears it completely down, and shows him for the type of evil that he really is, and of course, this is another good thing about, Christopher Lee often said this about Dracula, why do you play such great villains? He says, I don't play villains, I play people, right? Well, and that's, that's the case. Dukat never saw himself as the villain, the bad guy. He didn't think what he was doing was evil. He never saw that about himself. And that's where the writing gets so good. You could get that development in an episode of Star Trek, but it would always come very fast. And with all of these guys, we got the slow burn that makes them, you just love to hate them. That's what's great about them is it's always fun when they're on. Gul Dukat, just, man, nobody could drive a plot forward like Dukat, man.
Well, the funny thing is the writers realized what they were doing, because he was becoming likable. He was getting a fandom because he was doing things that were, that were helpful or whatever. And they were realizing that they were redeeming like Hitler, basically. And that's why they had him take the turn where they showed no, this is who you are deep inside. All the rest of it is just veils that you put on to hide your true self from people. But you really are this dark villain. And then from then on,
entire Jonestown episode.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
I mean, he definitely was the hero of his own story.
Right. Yes. Totally.
He even said he saved the Bajorans. He saved them.
Oh yeah, he excuses the occupation. Oh, but it was worse under other people. I actually lowered the death quotas and stuff like that. Aren't I such a good person? Because
I when I watched that episode, I was watching it and I was watching them fencing, and I was watching Avery Brooks. I love it when he turns out. All right, you want to do this? Let's do it. And he gets into it, and all of a sudden, he's as injured as he is, he's just full of rage, but it's this ice pick, and there's a part when he says, you hated them, didn't you? Yes. We were clearly the superior race. And I just got chills. Mm-hmm. I don't think it registered on me at the time, other than just oh my God, this is so cool. But, obviously with a few more decades of wisdom, to hit and draw from, especially current events, I just got goosebumps when I was listening to his rationale, and it was I
am so glad that Nana Visitor nixed the plan that they were going to have for Kira and him to have a relationship, because he clearly had a he had a Bajoran fetish. And that was the thing. He was
right. It was almost an Orientalism sort of.
Right, exactly. And he had such a desire to be loved. He wanted to be perceived as, you are the benevolent, God of our people, and he wanted that worshipful sort of devotion. And it's but then he also wanted to have his way with any of the women that he could. And it's to have Kira and him hook up would have been such a bad choice. And I am so glad that they nixed that and then instead they did that story where she finds out her mother had a relationship with him,
the comfort woman,
right? Exactly.
Oh gosh, yeah, that
was a tough one to watch.
That would have been so bad.
Tough one to watch.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing that strikes me about what makes Dukat and Kai Wynn such great villains is that they have the time to really develop them, and that they're their motivations are, it's when they're evil in the way that real people are evil. They're deluded by their own, belief that what they're doing is right and that they can justify any evil action, and that I am, because I am a pure savior with pure intentions, that makes any means justifiable. And it's what makes it you hate them so much. And because when you see it in real life, I was rewatching Deep Space Nine during quarantine in 2020, and I just kept looking at the parallels between Dukat and a certain president in the White House at the time. And it was so striking, because it's obviously this was written before that happened, but it was just so scary how much the parallels, how how the similar rationale, the similar, types of things they were saying, and Wynn too, with the whole, conservative right-wing kind of, religious thing we have in America now. It's the rationale is it's so similar. We can justify any evil because we're pure and we're trying to, create this pure, perfect society and purify everything that's evil kind of a thing. And and it's just shocking how something that was written, 20 years ago is exactly still happening in real life now. And it's
like
the
that
insight
episode with the Bell riots where they go back in time, and that to me, watching that episode even years later, just recently, it's horribly accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, just portraying Dukat's narcissism, even the parts of him that that are sympathetic, like how he loves Ziyal and he was so torn up when she died. But the thing you realize is that, he was originally gonna kill her. The only reason he kept her and say because she worshipped him and adored him, and she actually believed that he was this wonderful guy that he wanted everyone to believe him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you feel sorry for him until you realize that the only reason he mourns her death is because he's mourning someone who believed in his fantasy. You know what I mean? He didn't really love her. He loved the image of
her idea
him that she had, and it's just it's just chilling, the depth of this guy's self involvement, and it's just, it would make, it's what makes him a terrific villain. I mean, they got it,
Oh. And Stephanie, what do you think about the villains?
Oh, everyone's already hit it right on the head. They're just fantastically developed. As I said, they are all the hero of their narrative. So, I mean, that basically is just a more simplistic way of saying what Miranda was saying as to how they're all filled with justifications for their actions and all that stuff. And it's not something you can get in an episodic series. So that's why we were finally presented with that in a Star Trek series, when they finally went with a serialized route instead of the episodic. And that is one of the reasons why I say it's not my favorite Trek, but it's the best Trek, because we did get that development and that complexity of everyone. The villains are clearly villains, but you understand that on their point of view, they are the good guys. Our heroes are not all the perfect archetypes of just superior morality or anything like that we very often see in other Starfleet officers. There are shades of gray to everybody,
very generic,
whether they be good or bad.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to bring up, was that, even Kai Wynn, you find out she was a big player during the Resistance. She was somebody that was involved with liberating Bajor. It's just she felt that now she deserved, oh, I put in all this hard work, now I deserve all the power for myself, and that's where she's a villain. But you see the fact that these people are capable of altruism, they were capable of helping others, but then it's the sort of self-absorption that is what turns them into villains. Other than Brunt. Brunt was just an awful person. But he didn't need a lot of the three, the dimensions that the other ones did, because he was brought in as mostly a comedy villain anyway. So
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's one of the excellent things about the show. And even, and it sucks that we kind of didn't talk about Kira when we talked about characters because of time reasons. But even with Kira, we call her a freedom fighter. But, if this had been after 9/11, the show would have looked at this a totally different way.
Oh, yeah.
Because, she was basically a terrorist. And it's but what, but who calls somebody a terrorist? Who calls them a freedom fighter? Totally depends on your point of view. And we saw the fact where even Kira got disgusted with other Bajorans because she realized that there has to be an end to it at some point. And that's what you were talking about, Stephanie, with the episode with Cardassian. And she even gets that relationship with that other Cardassian later when they try to convince him that she's his daughter. That the Obsidian, because they're trying to get him to reveal stuff and arrest him, so they use her as this pawn by saying oh, she's really a Cardassian sleeper agent, but she's develops a father-daughter relationship with him. And again, her broadening her mind to see we can't always just, the same way that the Cardassians looked at us as monolithic and they saw us as these are a lesser species. We can't look at all Cardassians and say they're evil, or we're just going to perpetuate that same thing. But you see, that's the sort of thing that happens, though. That's why we have these things in the real world with two sides that never get along, because they're never able to put it behind them and move on.
That's one of the things until Ezri, Kira was definitely my favorite character, and I adore her and I love her because, one of the things about Kira is that, yes, she's tough, she's angry, she doesn't back down, she has strong principles, but also she essentially, despite all the hardship and suffering and fighting that she has had to do in her life, she has a core of hope and belief in the future, that reconciliation on some level is possible, and she's willing to put in the work for that. And even she has tons of hate for Cardassians and everything that happened, but it's she is willing to look at the other side and the episode with that Juliet mentioned with the Cardassian guy, that one, and the one the second skin with the one where she was the other one that was mentioned, those two that were mentioned were just such great examples of how Kira is able to just grow and still be open to the idea of healing and reconciling even after all she's been through. And I think that is such a beautiful part of her character, and one of the things that makes her such a great character, because it's you can see she struggles with this stuff all the time, but she never ever gives up, and she never closes her mind to possibilities. And I think I love her so much. I just can't. I could just go on a whole thing about how great she is and how much I love her. But we'll just leave it at that. She's great and I love her.
Oh, good. No, I'm glad we got to mention Kira at least.
I think she's the strongest character in terms of, I think she was the one that showed up the most fully developed right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
They had her down the quickest, and she stayed consistent the longest.
And not only did she stay consistent, aside from sleeping with Odo, she had the most growth too.
Yeah.
So, and because she did, you're right. She had that vestige of hope, but she also never forgave nor forgot, what she had to do to get to this point. And it was that, to pull it back to the villains, it was the situational ethics and the moral compass with the changing point of view that dictated, which way it pointed, that really drives that show in a way, like I said, that we haven't gotten with any Trek before or since. It's why Voyager was such a letdown for me after Deep Space Nine ended, because I liked the fact that that we could like the villains even when we hated them. There was stuff to like about each one of them, and there was stuff to not like about the heroes. And how we felt about that, changed depending on where we were in our own lives, which was an engagement factor that I don't think we got with Next Gen either. The how far are you willing to go in war was a conversation that we got all through seasons 4, 5, and 6. And so it was having those villains be three-dimensional and being nuanced and having a shade of gray about each of them that allowed us to see them as both, I know I say human when we're talking about Cardassians, but we see them as human and also monstrous in turn. And so yeah, I think a good show is always, defined by its villains. And I will take the Pepsi challenge with any other iteration of Trek, versus what we got in DS9.
Sure. Yeah, no. And I mean, speaking to the point of Kira, though, like season 1 Kira should never have run the station. But when season 7 Kira at the end is the one left running the station, that feels like a progression. Right. Colonel Kira has come through this journey, has broadened her mind. And now she, even though she is a Bajoran, is wise enough to be able to handle the interests of multiple cultures going through this station and be fair, to everybody. And I think that's like one of the really great things. And that segues into one of my last topics here that I want to talk about, which is this is the arc Star Trek of the 5 original Star Treks, let's say, going through Enterprise. The other ones were very standalone. They might do short arcs or arcs that maybe like 3 episodes in a season, sort of scattered around, have a particular story or whatever. But this is this is a show that, especially starting with season 3, you pretty much had to watch it, maybe not every week, but you had to watch it most weeks or you would lose the thread of the story. And for some people, that's a criticism. That's one of the things that I've heard people say, like, oh, I missed a few episodes and then I couldn't get back into it. And so, yeah, it wasn't a show that I really liked. And but other people, like myself, I'll just put myself out there, like this was going on at the same time as Babylon 5 was going on. It was the same time that in the animation world, we had things like X-Men and Exosquatting Gargoyles that were all interlinked, serialized storytelling. And so there's a sort of a movement going on in the early 90s to get back to serialized storytelling because you can tell a broader story if all your stories are linked. So I'm just sort of curious. I pretty much thinking this crowd, because we're all DS9 fans, nobody's going to be a dissenter. I'm just curious, like, was that a problem for you at any point in time? What do you think about, doing the arc kind of thing? Or do you think Star Trek's better as standalone? Because, for some people, that's a draw. That's why they're doing Strange New Worlds, is to go back to just individual standalone episodes. So let's start with you on this one, Mark.
I think that because we were in a stationary location, it worked best for that. This is high noon in space. This is on the frontier, for our space western analogy. And so, it's you had to get to know everybody on Gunsmoke in order to feel like the Miss Kitty episode was interesting. And so obviously there was still a serialized component to it. What I think of as the sort of next gen checklist. Well, we got to have a Q episode, and we got to have a holodeck episode, and we got to have a this, and we got to have a that. And if we don't have this or that or the other, then anarchy will reign. And so there was some of that carried over into DS9, but because I hated Q and I hated holodeck malfunctions, couldn't stand them.
Holodeck malfunctions, I'll agree with you, but how can anyone hate John Delancey as Q?
I loathed him from the get-go. In the same,
that's my favorite character.
Oh,
same here. I love Q. Maybe not my favorite, but I love him.
I think all of the Q episodes suck Grievous donkeys.
Okay, but on topic of DS9, just since you mentioned Q, Cisco gets to punch Q in the face. And that's one of the best. Right. That's one of the best Q scenes ever. Picard would never do that.
No. So what I liked about DS9 was that they were able to take some of the things that I hated about Next Gen and put a turn on it that was, I thought, fantastic. You know, their holodeck didn't always malfunction, which was great. And sometimes we'd see pieces of scenes in holodecks where just stuff was going on, and that was fine. So when Cisco goes through his dream phase and he's a science fiction writer in the 1950s, I mean, you know, from a meta point of view, that's a holodeck episode, right? Mm-hmm. But contextually, I think it plays off as much more interesting because we got to do some stuff with the Bajoran head trips that was that I think was more useful to character. You know, it wasn't a case where I'm Q, I'm just going to show up and mess up everything and then put it back together again by the end of the episode and nothing changes. There was, okay, so the one Q episode where that happens is the It's a Wonderful Life episode where he goes through and shows Picard how all of his, you know, things sort of contribute to who he is.
Tapestry.
Thank you, Tapestry. That's one episode out of 7 seasons that I thought was worth doing, and you could have done it some other way. And so that's what I loved about the episodic episodes of DS9. Don't ever fall into that trap for me. You know, our man Bashir is great. Even the one where Odo gets to be the gumshoe is, you know, those just worked better for me. Maybe because it was a break from 3 episodes of War is Hell, right? And so that might have been, I think, maybe how they were able to use those a little more effectively. You know, we've been doing the Dominion stuff pretty hard. Everybody's cried for 3 episodes in a row. Let's lighten it up a little bit, you know? Or when they would lighten it up, it wouldn't be completely light, would it? You know, the science fiction writer episode is great, but it also feeds into the larger storyline, you know. So I thought that they made the best use of it, and I think it informed the series in a way that none of the other treks got to have. You know, they didn't get a through line like this on any of the other shows, and I think it shows, especially in Voyager, which I think was for me a big swing and a miss. So,
okay, Stephanie, arcs.
What was the original question?
Yeah, how do you feel about arcs in Star Trek? Like, I know probably now because you talked about how you like DS9, but like, was that originally like a hindrance to you, or how do you feel about the arc?
I mean, I think we kind of discussed this on our TNG episode. Where we were discussing how that would have worked if they did arcs versus episodic. I am a fan of both. I like episodic. I like full overarching stories. And I have seen that division coming into play so hardcore with all the new Trek lately, because they are going with the more story-driven versus adventure-driven episodes. So, I mean, I don't really care. Okay. Because, yeah, I mean, I loved TNJ. Why do I keep saying J? Oh, my gosh. I don't know why I keep saying TNJ today instead of TNG.
If you want to say the next generation, that won't hurt my feelings. We don't have to abbreviate everything. I'm okay with it. I'm on.
See, I normally say just. Actually, what I normally say is next gen. So let's just go with next gen. And if I say next gen, it doesn't sound any different than next gen. So
I'll know you're not talking about the other Jennifer.
Anyways, aside from my inability to speak properly today, when DS9 was airing, I was hugely into Next Gen. I was also hugely into Babylon 5. So the episodic versus serialization didn't matter at all to me. To me, the only thing that held me back was me being a snobby 10-year-old saying this is Star Trek ripping off Babylon 5. But once I finally got into it, when it was actually being broadcast in syndication, I was just like, oh, this is great. I like the fact that we're having characters remember things in a Star Trek that happened to them a few episodes later. Veering slightly off topic, that's one of the things that keeps me interested with Picard is the fact that they keep bringing up things that happened to Picard in his life that we saw in Next Gen, and then 3 episodes later he forgot he was ever Locutus or forgot he ever lived an entire lifetime on another planet.
When Rachel and I went through Next Generation, she was like, Picard should be the most traumatized person.
Right?
Like in all of it, he turned into a Borg, lived out this whole life, with a family that then was ripped away from him. And like we had like 3 or 4 things that we were like, any one of these things would be like lifetime therapy.
Right. And that was always my biggest issue with the episodic thing, is just that people forgot that things happen to themselves. You don't need to make it a crucial part of the story or even of their character, but for them to at least remember it happened is kind of nice. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Picard, even when it does kind of go off end.
I just wanted to say though, or say the difference between having Worf break his back, but he's fine by the end of the episode and we completely ignore it, versus Nog losing a leg and having to actually deal with that over several episodes. And believe me, Nog is not like my favorite character at all, but they were able to give him some like emotional weight as a character by having that happen to him, and you sort of had to go through the journey with him, about that. And I think that's
and Vic Fontaine. Oh, that look you gave me. I've been trying to find a way to mention Vic this entire time we've been talking. Thank you, Nathan.
This is the thing. So this is kind of done. I'm gonna pause after this because of this kind of like my last topic is gonna dovetail into this. But I feel like DS9 is the only Trek that has a linear trajectory. Each season is better than the one before it until season 7. And suddenly season 7, like the floor drops out from under you, and we're spending all our time at stupid Vic's place and introducing Ezri when it's like there's a war going on, people. I don't care about Vic Fontaine. I don't care about Ezri. Get back to the war. And oh my God, season 7 frustrates me for the first half, where it's just like, yeah, we have time to do all this personal crap. Let's ignore the war. It's not a big deal. And all right, anyway, sorry.
The problem was they needed more seasons. They shouldn't have ended at season 7. They should have kept going because they had lots of stories.
I mean, it all comes down to like Ira Stephen Bear was like this big fan of the guy who plays Vic Fontaine and wanted him in the show. And it's like, it's not necessary. He doesn't fit. We don't need musical numbers. Like, we don't need any of that.
Okay, he didn't need to be in that many episodes, but there were some fun ones in there. Like, come on, the casino heist one. That was so fun in the middle of all that horrible war stuff. Like, it's nice to get them dressed up and go on a little casino heist in the 60s. Come on.
But honestly, the Nog episode, it's only a paper moon, where
that was
he
terrific.
actually has to really deal with PTSD in there.
Right.
I mean, that episode brings me to tears every single time.
No, it's probably the best use of Vic Fontaine.
I have a special love for sentient holodeck programs. Moriarty.
Yes.
The Doctor for me.
But see, I thought Vic Fontaine was a good thing because I like episodic and I like the serial, which I think they both work. And I think DS9 broke some serious ground that laid the way for Battlestar Galactica to be able to go with long, beautiful arcs. I do think that some Treks and some things took it a little too far, maybe. But at the same time, I don't care so long as it tells me a good story that I am entertained by. You can give me both. It's like it's the same reason I watch Supernatural. Give me an arc that lasts for 15 seasons and then give me Monster of the Week interspersed. Totally okay with both of those. And I think DS9 did a good job with it. I think the Vic Fontaine episodes were able to give us a little bit of levity in the midst of 3 episodes of sobbing about the war. And watching Cisco update the numbers on the board, and it hurts my soul. And I was kind of okay. I liked Vic Fontaine. I loved give me some musical episodes and some fun.
There was an episode where literally the last 10 minutes is them singing in Vic's bar, and I'm just like, there was so much more you could have done with those 10 minutes. Like that did not need to be there. That was
I love those 10 minutes, but that's just me perhaps.
Hey, at least Vic's was better than Fairhaven. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, is that where Janeway had her little fantasy
Delete
fling?
the wife.
Oh God. Her hollow man, as Kate Mulgrew says. But anyway, so Miranda, what do you think about the whole arc thing?
I do not care what format a show is in as long as the writing's solid. And so I loved it for this because it worked for this. I love Next Generation because it did what it did well, and I love DS9 because it did what it did well. So I mean, it was annoying at the time because if you miss an episode, you're totally heckin' lost. You got to go and like find out, like, did you see this? What happened last time? But now that I have seen it all, I can just pick it up and rewatch any episode because like I generally know what happens, so it doesn't doesn't bother me anymore. I just like it worked and I love it, and it doesn't matter format. Good writing, and it had it, so I'm cool.
One point I want to add, when these were coming out through the 90s, we were still using VHS to record episodes, and they were of course syndicated, so sometimes shows would move or get preempted or whatever, and there was a kind of an urgency about them that you got with TV prior to streaming. As cool as it was to have 7 seasons available to me at a glance back in the day, even the episodes that were episodic, we'd watch them and sort of comb through them, looking for the tidbits of the, stories that we were following or the characters that we liked or, whatever. For a while we made a drinking game out of Morn because, right. And so there was a certain amount of that, that was, and that's what we would do. We would do that. And then we would, but some of you watched it in a different sort of mindset than you do now, with Strange New Worlds, for example, I didn't watch it until this morning. People have been talking about it for 2 days online, and I've just kind of skipped over it, and because I've got control over that. But the very notion back then was, you'd watch it, and then the next day you'd talk about it at work. So you had to stay up on it, and if you weren't going to be home, or whatever reason, Wednesday night was your bingo night or whatever, you'd be sure to watch it the very next day or as soon as you could, because everybody else was going to be talking about it in real time, and you wanted to be a part of that conversation. So I think maybe this was and ditto Babylon 5, and to a lesser extent Battlestar Galactica, because we were DVRing by BSG. But that's something I miss about those treks from that time period, is that sense of urgency and that sense of community, born of subculture. Whenever we would watch it and find other people that we like to talk about it, sometimes it would just be one person at work.
Oh, I remember after seeing In the Pale Moonlight, calling my best friend and being like, oh my God, did you see the episode? That was like the only time I've ever watched an episode of something and I had to immediately call somebody and be like, oh my God, did you just see that? Because that was like the most amazing hour of television that I'd ever seen up to that point.
We did some, that was you don't have to do it now you could just get on Facebook and sort of leisurely doom scroll past it or whatever, but Yeah, man. That's something
Except I had to stop posting about because people were like, spoiler. Even if I put big spoiler warning and go like 7 lines down and talk about it, it would be like, well, I scrolled and I read something that I shouldn't have, and oh, how dare you post that on Facebook? So I've just stopped putting it on Facebook because it's like I can't talk about anything on Facebook.
This is why people are coming to my blog now. Because,
oh, so frustrating. But yeah, the one thing I don't think anyone's mentioned that I really wanted to, though, that Deep Space Nine was able to do because of the arcs is we have more cultural information now about every major race in Star Trek than we would have ever gotten from, 4 or 5 next gens. Like the Ferengi, Rachel hated the Ferengi when we watched TNG. She was like, this is the dumbest, like worst thing. Like they're the worst characters. Like, why do they keep bringing them back? I was just like, just wait for DS9. Just wait. And she didn't believe me.
Wait for Moogie. Just wait for Moogie.
She did not believe me. And suddenly we're watching DS9. She's like, oh God, my favorite episodes are the Ferengi episodes. And I'm like, see?
There's that meme. There's a meme going around that's the guys. It's just still taken from the guys watching like an old Zelda trailer or something where they're all bored and then they're like, yeah. And the board panel is TNJ. I was overthinking it this time, and I was like,
the next juncture,
next gen Ferengi episodes is the board expression, and then next gen DS9 episode is the
yeah, but we get that for the Klingons, we get it for the Cardassians. I mean, tons for the Bajorans.
Development for the Klingon, and of course, we get an entire Bajoran culture dropped in.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the Klingon development in DS9. Of course, I was a big Klingon fan from they've always been my favorites. But we really, I think we get the most interesting stuff in DS9 because again, what else are you going to talk about, right? Somebody missed a wheat shipment on the promenade. We got to put something in here. We might have, you know what? We've got all these alien races just sort of lying around. Well, what we should do is something with the Klingons. You think people will like that? I don't know. Let's give it a shot. So, I know you're right. That's a great point, Nathan.
And then they combine.
The House of Quark. I love the House of Quark.
Rilke.
It would come together.
Yeah. I love it.
Because they're like, we realized we had never done anything with Ferengi and Klingons in the same room at the same time before. And they were like, well, how would they react? They're so different. And then it was just like, all right, we'll do this episode where that's all that it's about is like this Klingon woman needing a Ferengi's expertise to figure out what's going on and the sort of grudging respect she gains for him. Which that whole relationship is fantastic. I love that. That's so much better because Quark is overt about what he wants, right? But in the beginning, she can't stand him, and she sort of grows to like him over the course of things, and it's just so fun. I love that so much.
To this day, I still want a spin-off series that's like Moogie and Grilka running like this fantastic empire together. You can see it, can't you?
Yeah.
Because again, the development, and I gotta give DS9 some credit for that, of the female characters that you wouldn't expect. Moogie basically took over the Ferengi Empire. I mean, and then
as she should.
Zek was like, no, it's cool. I don't have the head for this anymore, but she's great, and I'm just letting her run it, and it's fine with me. And then you've got
Except then they give it to Rom.
Well, then you've got Grilka, doing something that Klingon women, even Lursa and Bator, never did. I mean, they weren't the head of the House of Duras, but Grilka became the head of her own house with Quark's help. And she really appreciated him for that. It was a good
the disdain that Gowron gives that Klingon when he's like, you used economics, it's just like you are dead to me. It's like, and then the idea of Quark, because of the fact that he doesn't have to win the battle, he just has to show the courage to stand up to the guy, that then suddenly he's like, oh, you're great, Ferengi. We have you at a handicap, so the fact that you're just willing to stand up makes you super brave, and we love you. And it's just that whole thing is just so good, how it sort of plays on expectations, and you have to really think about culturally, what does that mean for people who have a particular mindset and everything? It's so well done.
Kind of spinning off of what Juliet was just saying too. DS9 also, I think, gave us the best Loxana Troy episode
Yes.
in existence.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if there's an episode where I loved Odo in, it's that episode.
Yeah, I gotta say, because like Loxana was someone I found fairly annoying on Next Gen, but on DS9 they really like got me to like her as a character and sort of show like, you know, and she even says like, I know that I must seem silly, and like I know I must seem like kind of annoying, and she kind of like bears her soul to Odo, and from then on it's kind of like, okay, I sort of get this. I get this, this woman's had a lot happen to her in her life. And, like, this is sort of like the character she's become, but she has self-awareness. She understands. And like, yeah, yeah. And then the friendship between her and Odo is really sweet after that. Yeah.
Everybody's got to kind of bring up an episode, and I know you're on point with talking points, Nathan. I apologize. But I have to mention Trial and Tribulations. I don't know why we haven't talked about this.
Oh yes, that was so great.
It is so great, and let me tell you something else too. That holds up. I watched that thing on my big ass, high definition Hoosie Fluptal. Where back in the day, I had a 27-inch, color TV screen. And I thought I was in hog heaven. Watching it now in high definition clarity, that thing holds up. Technically, it's perfect. Okay, they didn't get crazy with the tricks. Where they succeeded, where so many of these other kind of things have failed, is they got the lighting right. They matched the lighting meticulously, and it worked so well that even when they were putting people in scenes, it's seamless. It's a gorgeous, glorious episode. And
I have to say, the work they did to reverse engineer the Enterprise, because like they talked about the fact like the drawings didn't have dimensions on them. They were like, we didn't know like what, like we saw like the scale, like how things had to relate to each other, but they're like originally they were going to build everything too small until somebody like helped them out and saw like, oh, like it's actually this scale, like, oh, okay. But since they were able to do that and they were able to create like real blueprints for the original Enterprise, that's the whole reason we had these fan productions that came out like over the 10-15 years ago that were able to build exact replica Enterprise set. Star Trek continues, Star Trek New Voyages, and I've toured the New Voyages Enterprise. I've actually been there. I have photos of me on the Enterprise in the transporter room, in the bridge, like all of that exact because they used the blueprints from Deep Space Nine that they generated for that episode to build their replica Enterprise. And that is amazing. And in fact, I just want to say this one thing. They were so meticulous that there's one corner of McCoy's office that you never see in the show. And because you never see that corner, it's blank on their studio because they're like, we don't know what went there, so we're not going to just fill it in. We're just going to leave it as a gap.
I like it.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic from soup to nuts. I love the little touches, such as them throwing they're looking for the tribbles and throwing that's not the bomb, that's not the bomb, and each time they do, they cut to Kirk with one of them cascading down and hitting him in the head.
I love
it's
that.
such a small thing, right? But it's so good. And they managed to get sort of the best parts of the original episode in there as well, right?
Yeah.
Kirk just, on a slow burn, which is not something that Shatner, always did, but being able to play up the comedy of the episode. And then, I was never a fan. I didn't like it. For example, when a 250-year-old Leonard McCoy refused to beam aboard the new Enterprise because he didn't want his molecules scrambled. And I thought, I appreciate the fan service you're trying to do, but it's lost on me because I don't need this to make that work. But this one felt like a much more genuine love note. It didn't feel like they were trying to shoehorn something in, to sort of make a splash. I think they really felt like they had a chance to sort of make hay. And, again, my favorite thing is, she's talking about the Klingons keep ordering Klingon coffee, and they go, "What Klingons?" And she said, "Them." And they all look over, and then they all look at Worf. Something we do not speak of. So good, so good.
See,
Great.
like Rachel's probably favorite moment in Star Trek is the one where Kirk's questioning why the fight broke out.
Yes.
And it's like, they insulted you, Captain. Oh, so that's when you fought. Like, oh no, Captain, you told us to be on our best behavior, so we didn't do that. And then it comes out that it's because they insulted the Enterprise that Scotty had to punch him. And it's such a great scene, and they kept that in, with this too. And so
and did a great job of putting O'Brien in there, in a way that didn't disrupt the timeline, right? I mean, that was the other nice thing is they managed to do a time travel episode where nothing screwed up anything, and they were having to fix it to make that not work. It was just that was
a fun episode.
My favorite Trek, and one of my favorite episodes off of one of my favorite Trek series of all time. So there you go.
Oh God, yeah, no, I did want to talk about favorite episodes, but we've already been going so long that it's kind of like we already talked about Pale Moonlight and Arm Ambition. We had so many come out, but we will do like a sort of shout outs bit at the end too. But the last topic I wanted to bring up is I wanted to talk about oh crap, there are two more that I really want to talk about. All right, so
let's do lightning round.
Right, so lightning round. One of the things, that this show is touted at, because I remember reading the materials that were coming out, sort of hyping the show and everything at the time, was that this is like sort of the darker Trek. This is the Trek where we're allowed to, sort of, have people get into arguments and do, stuff like that. Whereas, that was never the case in the original Trek, where they were the moral perfection, but it was sort of a thing that Gene Roddenberry had developed in the intervening years. So before he passed in Next Gen, it was very much like that in Next Gen. Whereas sort of the later seasons, they did sort of pull back a little bit from that. But DS9 was very much touted as, this is a show where we expect to see conflict. This is going to be a show that's going to get into darker territory. And for some people, that's a huge problem. Like we talked about how arcs were a problem for some people. Another one of the criticisms the show has gained is because of the fact that it's like, I don't feel like Star Trek should be like that. I feel like, it should be optimistic, hopeful, everybody, in the Federation should be good to each other, all that kind of stuff. So, so it's a darker tone show. How do you feel about that in the context of Star Trek? Do you feel like that is something that we shouldn't like go down a particular point, or does it make sense in the context of what was going on in this show that, people would have to sort of deal with these things? So let's start with you on this one, Stephanie.
I think it was a great addition. It gave more complexity to the Federation. And even if we did always have that kind of idealistic view with our officers, anytime you got to an admiral, it was a toss of a coin as to whether or not they were actually evil or not.
All the bad people in the Federation are on the top.
Right. So we already did have that conflict in there, even in the Roddenberry era. But then you place it on a space station where we're constantly having different species travel in and out. That's prone to spark conflict even amongst your peers and your like-minded individuals. So it definitely gave it an element of realism. Not only making the characters still part of Starfleet, but a little bit more relatable by having all of those quirks and flaws to them, but also because I mean, that's just what's going to happen when you have that many people coming and going. And then we add on the wars and the conflicts between other species that are constantly going on before the Federation even gets pulled into anything. And I don't think it could have worked as successfully if they had tried to keep that idealism alive in each of the Starfleet characters.
Okay. And Miranda, what do you think about that aspect?
I think you couldn't do Deep Space Nine without it. I mean, it's an expansion of the Star Trek universe. So it's in a different setting. It's going to be different. I mean, when you have everybody on a starship, they're, you know, they have the same goal, the same job, they're from the same background. Whereas with the space station, you have many different people there for many different purposes with many different goals. And inherently that's going to create conflict. So, I mean, I don't think, you know, it never felt like, you know, like cynical. We're just trying to make it darker to be shocking or anything. It felt real and organic. And
let me just pause it, and everybody else can talk about this too as we get to them, you know. And so Stephanie, jump in if you want to. What about Section 31 though? Because Section 31 is sort of a darker element that was sort of baked into, like, retroactively into the fabric of the Federation. Like, you feel like that is sort of like a you know, I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's going against Roddenberry's vision of the Federation.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Section 31, that is the one thing that did feel like, you know, because it's like all the war stuff. It's like war is bad. There's no way to be, like, you know, morally pure in war ever, no matter what anyone thinks or says. But like the idea of Section 31 has always been there. That was the thing that creeped me out. Like I don't like it. But, you know, in Discovery later, they use it really well. So I don't hate it as much as I used to. That is creepy, that like that. Yeah, I think that is the one thing that was like, this is shady and creepy and I don't like it. Section 31, that's okay. Yeah, that's an area where I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know.
I was the complete opposite. When they introduced Section 31, I thought that was a good addition. That, again, it seemed realistic to me. I don't, as much as I want humanity to be that utopia, I see that we're always going to have that little shady background running bit with us. If the majority of us can be nice Starfleet officers and we just have that Section 31 doing the stuff nobody wants to know about in the background, it seems more human.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things like Rachel said when they revealed Section 31 is she was like this makes a lot more sense now, because she was always saying, like, how do they maintain this when they're surrounded by these other races that are duplicitous, that are warmongers? And she's like, oh, okay, so this is almost like a facade the Federation puts up, you know, like that they do have to do these bad things. It's just they limit it. They you know, they sort of segregate those people and be like, you're the ones who have to do the bad stuff so that everybody else can be like Picard and be morally pure.
I really appreciated the fact that once they did introduce it too, they did utilize it. As Miranda said, we had it play out really well in Discovery, and we also had them in Enterprise. Appropriately, we did not have them in Voyager because when they're revealed to us, Voyager's lost. So it makes sense that they weren't involved there. But I appreciate the fact that, yeah, it makes sense for them to be there, to be that shadier underside that has to be there to help with those, as you said, those other duplicitous races and species out there. Lupin, stop shredding your nails on my chair.
Okay.
Sorry, cat.
All right. So cat talk. We'll do that another time. Juliet, how do you feel about sort of the darker tones of DS9?
I liked it. You know, once I got over my initial thing of, oh my gosh, there's two Treks running at the same time, what am I going to do? I thought it felt appropriate because I love Next Gen. Yeah, it was what I was introduced to. That's what I grew up with. And for all its flaws, I still felt like there had to be a darker part to things. We knew there was a darker part to human history. We knew that, you know, bad things happened to get us to this point. And I always wanted to believe that was the happy goal that we could get to. But it has to come. There can't only be shininess. There has to be darker parts of it. Ursula Le Guin actually wrote a fantastic story that kind of goes with that, called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. And that's what I always think of when I'm thinking about the dark parts of Star Trek. And I loved DS9 for that. I loved it getting into the grittier parts. I loved it showing much more, I don't know, darker bits of our characters, more flawed characters. I loved Section 31 because I was like, haha, this had to be in existence. I am grateful that other Star Trek series since have also explored that Starfleet and the Federation aren't always as good as they want to be seen. And it works for DS9. I was never upset with the darkness of it. I'm just weird that way.
Okay. All right, Mark.
I think that Trek at its best is often a pop cultural mirror of the times in which it is created. And I think that DS9 is absolutely emblematic of the 90s. Post Cold War, kind of directionless without a rudder, America sort of, wanders a bit. And a lot of things we know now, we let lay fallow have come back to sort of bite us on the ass. I feel like DS9 was a reflection of that post Cold War environment in a way that I don't even think they were fully cognizant of. I think all of it plays out in the subtext, but I'm okay with that because I think that's where your best writing comes out. Is what it's not just what you're trying to say or what you're trying to allude to. It's the stuff that you don't even think about because it's so informed by your own time and place. And Trek is certainly at its best an effect of that. Classic Trek absolutely is informed by the 1960s. You can't say it's not. Some of the episodes are almost straight out of the headlines, like Law and Order. I mean, they should almost begin dun dun. Yeah, that's where I think DS9 really falls for me. Next Gen, I think initially started out that way. I used to say that Star Trek was politically active, Next Gen was politically correct. And I think early on, they were sort of embracing that idea of multiculturalism that was around in 89 and 90. And I think that as they went, they were able to sort of focus in on that message when they did it. They didn't always do it. DS9 comes out of the gate swinging. So yeah, absolutely it works.
Yeah, and for me, I'm always going to like moral ambiguity in my storytelling. I like it when villains aren't just nasty, all the time. And I like it when your heroes can make, poor moral choices, because that just makes for more interesting dynamics between characters. And, that's just the way it is. So, yeah, I felt like that. And like I say, they interview, I've seen on the Next Gen Blu-rays where they interview writers who wrote for the original Trek and then wrote for Next Gen under Roddenberry. And they said he had changed. They're like, he let us have conflict in the original show and he wouldn't let us have it. He would rewrite stories and take out the conflict and tell us Federation officers wouldn't argue with each other and stuff. And they were they felt like he had gone too far in the direction of believing in the perfection of the Federation. And so, DS9 allowed us to go back to that. And yeah, go back and watch classic Trek. You'll see lots of conflict between Starfleet officers, and generally good people. They'll still have conflict. So, I like that storytelling. All right. But my last question, the last thing I wanted to ask about, because this is still lightning round. We're still in the lightning round. Yeah. This is something that I felt from the first time that I watched the last episode. I feel it even now when I watch it. It feels like, that last 10 episode arc, it was going. And then there are things in that last episode that just bother me, that seem like there's such narrative problems. One is, we've built up Damar as being a man who has changed, a man who is going to be the right kind of leader for a new Cardassia. And then they kill him off in the last episode. And that felt what is that? That just felt wrong. And then there's the final confrontation between Sisko and Dukat that lasts 3 minutes and is so easy that he just got, oh, put much? And that felt like after we built up, like Dukat has a plan, he's doing this thing, and it's been happening in the sides. Like to not have like the confrontation be more epic than that just felt like a real disservice. I'm just kind of feel like I'm kind of wondering because there is a lot to like about the ending. I love like all the things where the characters are interacting at the end and they're all like having their stories, and some are moving on and some are staying on the station, but even if they're staying on the station emotionally, they've moved on in some way and all that kind of stuff. And I like the fact that there was cost to the end, that Sisko is gone now, even though not dead, he's gone in a sort of weird, hazy, nebulous way. But yeah, like I just kind of wondering how people feel, because while I don't hate it, it does feel to me like the ending was not like a complete knock it out of the park. It feels like that last episode has some things in it where I'm just like, I don't know if that really worked all that well. I'm just wondering if anybody else felt that way too. So let's start with you on this one, Juliet.
It felt a little rushed to me in a few places. I did feel the loss of Damar was a bit shocking, but at the same time, I wondered if they had another plan for the leadership and the growing of Cardassia, rebuilding. I had to trust in that one. It was just kind of sad. The confrontation between Sisko and Dukat was probably the thing that felt the most off to me. And at the same time, the way that Dukat's arc had been, to give him anything more glorious than that tiny, sad ending, I felt would have been to say it was okay to be him and say it was okay to have his arc. Sisko it just ended right then, really quick. We're all cool. And sometimes the big bads shouldn't get the big cool ending. Sometimes they've got to fizzle in a sad, depressing way that they would never choose for themselves. That's probably one of the absolute worst things he could have ever imagined, like in his worst nightmares. And I'm okay with that. I just wish that there had been, I don't know, another season to build us up to all of that, perhaps.
It feels so weird to me to say that a 10-episode arc felt too rushed at the end. And that's why I feel like I would have liked that arc to have been longer in the last season, which is why I say like the last season frustrates me. But I feel like, yeah, like it needed another season or something, or at least another few episodes. Stephanie, what do you think?
Pretty much the same thing. It was very quick to wrap up. I'm still not satisfied with the Sisko just becoming the Sisko. There were a lot of loose ends left open that I don't think I had ever fully considered how much it could have been helped by just even an extra couple of episodes, which is saying a lot with how long seasons were for Deep Space Nine. But unfortunately, I think we did lose a lot of time with Jadzia leaving and having to introduce Ezri. And much like the wrap-up of the Shadow War, it just kind of happened.
You're just going to keep drawing the parallels.
I mean, there's so many of them, even when it's completely coincidental. These two shows just
go that's
hand
definitely
in
not
hand.
a thing. They were looking at Babylon 5 and saying, let's copy that, because, I don't think anyone was happy with that one. Miranda, what about you?
Yeah, I just, at the time I thought that was all right because it was, the end of 7 years of watching it, so you're emotional anyway. But every time I've rewatched it, it leaves me like more empty. I feel like none of the character arcs really like wrapped up in an emotionally satisfying way. Just even like little things of having like, it would have been nice just to have Odo acknowledge Quark was a good adversary, just once, just let us have that for the end of the show. You know what I mean? Just little things like that didn't wrap up. And also, yeah, I feel like there just wasn't enough time. There's so much going on. And I feel like the whole Dominion War really distracted from the original thing of like, okay, this series is about rebuilding Bajor, bringing Bajor into the Federation. That never even happened. You know what I mean? I mean, even on Voyager, the whole point was they want to get home. At the last episode, they got home. Whatever failings the rest of that show had, at least the thing they were working for happened at the end. And with DS9, that didn't happen. And it just felt like kind of like, and we're just, all these characters going in all different directions. And, it's like, rebuilding all this stuff and new things. And I felt like I felt like we were left in the middle of the story. Like I wanted this story to continue some more, and I wanted to know where these characters were going and how this is going to end up, because this is even more weird and interesting than like what we had before. I felt like we needed another season, and I felt like we needed more emotional payoff for all the characters that we were saying goodbye to. I mean, Next Gen didn't have like an overall arc, but I feel like All Good Things wrapped up everything in a neat little bow and bookended everything better on that series that didn't have an overall arc than this ending did for this. It did have this continuing story arc, and I just feel like it just kind of missed it at the end, which makes me a little sad.
Yeah, I don't dislike the place they leave people. I feel like Kira's ending is very good, like as far as that. And I feel like favorite, yeah. I feel like Worf and Martok, with Martok becoming Chancellor and Worf becoming the ambassador, the Klingon ambassador, that's a perfect job for Worf, because he was a Klingon that was raised in the Federation, and I was like, that's perfect. That was like a great, of course everything since then has ignored that, but I thought that was like a perfect place for Worf to be. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the rest of it didn't have like a lot of emotional weight, but I felt like those two were very perfect sort of endings for those characters. But so Mark, how do you feel about the last episode?
I think I'm just gonna chalk this up to the vagaries of being episodic television writing pre-Sopranos, frankly. I think that they probably had leftover stuff from the previous season that they were trying to get to. I think probably the word came down, this is the last season, and they had to wrap everything up. And I think they just sort of miscalculated on how many episodes they needed for what they were trying to do. And I don't think it's that uncommon, but that's how I feel about it. I think it was just a valiant effort from a writer's room that was used to operating at a certain size and at a certain decibel, and now you've got to come full stop. So all of this has to be in place when you do. Some shows did it better than others. And this was certainly not optimal, but it wasn't terrible either. I mean, Sopranos botched the ending, and they changed television. So
I just want to say really quick though, but to Miranda's point, I don't know if you know this, but Brandon Braga, who was I think the head writer on Voyager, he was one of the main writers anyway, he wanted to end Voyager with them getting sent back to where they started at in the first episode, and everybody was like, no.
Oh my god, no. Oh my god.
That would have made it feel completely pointless.
Seeing that sort of all right.
If there was a writing license that could be revoked, he should have his writing license revoked for literally just that idea.
He also wrote what is considered the worst episode of Star Trek ever, which is the Warp 10 episode where he and Janeway turn into like slugs or like little lizards or whatever.
That is a masterpiece, and so bad it's good.
There's I think a lot of the things that some people complain about are in part something that was part of the procedure at the time, and I think the ending is no exception. So that's how I feel about that.
Right, and they pushed the envelope far more than they talk about in a lot of the documentaries that the studio hated it every time they did arcs, and they told them no, make it more episodic, and they're like, hey, it's the last season, so we can do whatever. They already told us we're not getting another season, so what are they going to do? Cancel the show? So that's why they did 10 episodes.
See, that's where I think that last season feels very indulgent with regards to the writer's room. Like, this is our last season, so everybody gets to do what you wanted to do that we never put in the other stuff. So anyways.
All right, well, guys, we've talked about DS9 for more than 2.5 hours, and we could talk about a lot more, but obviously, we don't have the time. So as we say our goodbyes, if there's something that you just feel like I got to get this in, this is such a great thing that we didn't say anything about, just short. couple 3 sentences about something that go right ahead. But let's start with you, Miranda. Please say goodbye. Let people know if they can find you online, and if you have any shout outs, give those.
Gosh. Just I love how they developed like a lot of the side characters like Rom and Lita and stuff, and I thought that was one of the great things about DS9, how every little character got their moment and got their arc, and that was really fun. So yeah, and you can't find me online, but check out my friend's game studio, Thorny Wench Game Studios. They make a variety of tabletop games for all ages, so give them a look out. And yeah, so thanks for having me on this very fun show.
All right, it's always great to have you, Miranda. And Stephanie, say goodbye, let people know where they can find you, and give any shout outs if you have them.
Well, there's something that I've been wanting to say, but of course now I completely forgot what that last little bit is. So we'll just go with, we all know that deep down Vic Fontaine is your favorite character, Nathan.
No. Especially not the Cisco musical number. No. God, I wasted 10 minutes of my life. All right.
Anyways, you can find me around online. Since the last podcast that we did, I've changed my handle. Oh no. I mean, if you search for El Crea, you're still going to find me because I still use it, but now it's becoming a little bit more private because I finally developed a pen name. So, if you look for me on Twitter, it's AK Stevens, A_K_ Stevens with a PH. And on there, you'll find me tweeting mostly about writing or Sailor Moon. And so, yeah, that's my new handle there. And it is also on Instagram. I can't remember if my underscores are in there or not, though, because I don't use Instagram for writing because, well, it's Instagram. So, yeah, that's probably the best place to find me is as AK Stevens. And it's going to be mostly chatter about me writing or my obsession with Sailor Moon.
Very cool. And Juliet, say goodbye. Let people know where they can find you. And if you have a shout out, give that.
I do want to agree with Miranda about the development of side characters and just mention specifically the fantastic relationships that they showed developing of single parents and their kids. You know, you've got Rom and Nog, you've got Cisco and Jake, and those were huge to watch as a daughter of a single mom as I grew up watching it. So it was really neat to see the development and the way that especially, you know, Rom stuck up and grew to support his son and was so proud of him. But yes, you can find me on Instagram. I am Rumi Elf, RUMIELF. Hope you like a lot of post-run and workout photos and cosplay pictures and pictures of my cats. That's what's all over there right now. And you can also find me on Twitter at _visible_elf, where I like to currently post a lot of retweets regarding Our Flag Means Death. You can also find me through 2 fantastic podcasts, Time Streams, if you're interested in listening to us watch Doctor Who from the very beginning, and Legendary Forces, where we talk about a lot of Star Wars, starting with the legends, man. Got to start at the beginning.
All right. And Mark, say your goodbyes. Let people know where they can find you and give a shout out if you have one.
I want to quickly shout out Jake, who was never annoying.
Oh, my daughter would disagree with you.
Well, I'm gonna again, if you know, compared to Wesley.
Oh, she loved Wesley.
Well, we will agree to disagree on that. Thanks for having me as always. Sorry I showed up late due to not knowing what time actually is. You can find me at if you'll do a search for North Texas Apocalypse Bunker. The website is my blog. It's a going concern. I'm currently reblogging a 5-part series on the movies of Dungeons and Dragons, wherein I basically go through all of the sword and sorcery and fantasy movies of the 1980s and tell you why I hate most of them. I will be throwing Legend under the bus. Feel free to log in and disagree. I've also got a Patreon and a Substack. The Substack newsletter's free to join, and you'll get updates on my life, my struggle, my journey back to health and wellness. And some really inappropriate photos of me sometimes showing you how much weight I've lost. So all of that is available. If you do a search for Mark Finn in North Texas Apocalypse Bunker, it'll all pop for you because I am a god at search engine optimization. So.
All right, and I just want to give a shout out. I mean, we talked about side characters, but I do want to give a shout out to Chase Masterson, who played Lita on the show. She is a real sweetie in real life. She is very much into anti-bullying campaign. When my daughter Rachel was bullied for liking Spider-Man, because that's a boys thing apparently, she came out. She talked to Rachel. We've seen her at cons a few times, and she always makes the time to say a few words to us. And so Chase, you're one in a million, and so I just wanted to give you a shout out because you were so kind to us, and so yeah. But Juliet, Stephanie, Miranda, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show this week.
Always a pleasure.
All right, that's it for DS9. What did you think about our episode? What do you think about DS9 itself? What do you think about Star Trek? What other things related to Trek do you want us to be talking about? What other topics in general do you want us to talk about? We want to hear from you, and you can do that in a whole bunch of different ways. You can email us at everything@42cast.com. You can also go to our Facebook at facebook.com/42cast. You can go to our website, 42cast.com, or you can go on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Threads at 42cast and find us there. You can also go on the 42cast Discord, and there will be a link for that in the show notes for this episode. You can also leave us reviews on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. With Apple Podcasts, the more reviews we get, the higher we show up in searches. So if you have an Apple account and if you haven't given us a review yet, we'd really love it if you would do that. You can help out the 42cast, as well as all the shows on the ESO Network by contributing to the ESO Network Patreon. You can find that at patreon.com/ESO Network. There are different perks for different tiers. You can get early access to some shows, exclusive access to some shows, and a whole exclusive ESO Network podcast. So if you have the funds to contribute, and if you'd like to do so, we would really appreciate it. I have two other podcasts. One is Time Streams, which is a Doctor Who podcast, and one is Legendary Forces, which is a Star Wars podcast. I know that I have, for quite a few episodes, promised that those would be back by the end of 2025, and obviously it is now 2026. I explained last episode about the issues that I've been having with the 42cast feed. I'm still working on that. And that will continue to be my priority. Once I have everything set up right with the 42cast, I am going to go back to first transferring the feeds for Time Streams and Legendary Forces over to my new feed service at rss.com. And then I will go about trying to release new episodes. So that should be a much quicker process for those two shows since there are fewer episodes by quite a margin. It's just the fact that 42cast has so many episodes that this is taking me so long, and I only have so much time per day to devote to it. So sorry about all of that, but I do still intend to get Legendary Forces and Time Streams off of hiatus. In Watch News, Beth and I have finished Dark Matter. It was a slow burn, but the show definitely got better as it went. Glad that I did not give up on it. About episode 3 or 4, I feel like it started taking off. Definitely glad that I watched it. I'm confused how they're going to get a season 2 out of that because I feel like it ended fairly definitively, but I guess we'll see. We watched the first episode of Pluribus last night. I thought it was an interesting premise. Beth said that it gave her anxiety, so I'm not sure we're going to watch it together. I will probably finish it up on my own at some point if she chooses not to continue watching it, but she found it very disturbing and said it gave her anxiety, so might be a warning for some of you if you easily get anxiety watching things that might be a problem with that show if you haven't seen it yet. Nothing to report in con news. I plan to be at Chicago TARDIS in 2026, but our funds are in such a state that I don't think it's possible that we're going to go to other cons this year, but always live in hope that things will turn around and things will get better, and I'll certainly let you guys know if we're going to show up anywhere else. All right, well, that's a wrap for this week. Join us back next week when Iñaki Godoy will not be joining us. And until then, this is Nathan signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast, copyright 2026. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.